Chapter 307. P.S. There are a total of 13 people in the 4 teams. There was a mistake in the writing. Although it was changed immediately after the upload, some readers might have seen the wrong version. Persei, the goatee elder, the bald yellow-robed elder, and Dongbush Shuang were flying toward Crimson Rock Mountain together. Dongbush Shuang, we will live and die together. You still don't know the names of Uncle Fu and an old thief, right? Ha, let me introduce them to you. Persei laughed. An old thief is called Chin Gu, and Uncle Fu is called Chin Fu. You can just call me an old thief. The goatee elder Chin Gu laughed. Greetings, brother Dongbush Shuang. You can just call me Chin Fu. The bald yellow-robed elder grinned. Once we enter Crimson Rock Mountain, we will still need brother Dongbu's help. Dongbush Shuang immediately said, Chin Fu, an old thief, we will live and die together. Let's help each other. Persei, Chin Gu, Chin Fu, all surnamed Chen. That was interesting. They are all people of my manor. They all grew up in the manor and have the surname Chen. Persei smiled. Impressive. A manor can have so many experts. Dongbush Shuang sighed. There are very few experts in the entire Xia people. This is different. Persei said as they flew. The material world is different from the deity world. It is very easy to become a transcendent in the deity world, and there are more experts. Our flying sword manor is also very famous. We have several hundred demigods, and 2 deities. Actually, there is no need for Manor Lord to personally take this risk. The goatee elder shook his head. Dongbush Shuang was speechless. Several hundred demigods. 2 deities. Persei and Manor Lord. My flying sword villa is currently facing a huge threat and I'm afraid will be annihilated overnight. Hence, I immediately climbed up to a universe god and am willing to take the risk for him. Persei shook his head, sigh, compared to the mortal world, the deity world is many times stronger. But, even my flying sword manor could be destroyed at any time once someone covets it. Now that I have promised that world deity existence to take the risk, he can at least protect my flying sword manor for 10,000 years. If I can successfully return, then it will be even more different. I naturally have to take a gamble. It's not easy, Dongbush Shuang said. Xia people are more troublesome than my flying sword villa. One is a powerful great demon god, and the other is a lord of the material world. Persei shook his head. Lord of the material world? What do you mean? Dongbush Shuang asked in confusion. They were flying in the dark void. None of them were flying fast. After all, they were not in a hurry. This was especially so for Dongbush Shuang's team. This was the first time they were talking in detail, so they were lagging behind. Persei didn't hide anything from them, the transcendence of your mortal world, once they become deities. After becoming deities, if they can continuously break through the threshold and become a peak deity before their 10,000 years of life is up, they will have a chance to refine the world core of a mortal world. As long as they successfully refine it before they are forced to leave, the entire mortal world will be their territory. You can live in this mortal world forever. Such deities are called lords. Lords of the material world. Refine the mortal world. Become a peak deity within 10,000 years and successfully refine the world core. Dongbush Shuang asked in confusion, are the lords of the material world very powerful and special? Peak deity. Xia people's ancestors who had entered the deity world for a long time only had 3 achievements. They had all entered the deity world and obtained some fortuitous encounters, spending a long time to achieve them. Very powerful. Persei said, to be able to achieve all this in a short 10,000 years is very inconceivable. With such a high comprehension ability, generally speaking, they will be able to enter the world deity realm after a long time. That sorcerer god might be very young, but he is also a great existence at the world deity level. You must know, the the difference between a world deity and a deity is like the difference between a transcendent and a mortal. Dongbu Shuang nodded lightly. Once you become an lord, as long as you can obtain a cultivation avatar technique, you can create an avatar. In that case, he would be able to cultivate an avatar and have it venture into the deity world. The original body will always remain in its hometown. Persei sighed, that is absolutely safe. Even the high and mighty experts of the deity world are unable to forcefully descend into the material world. Thus, the lords of the material world are practically immortal. Even if their avatars were to die, they would be able to refine another avatar to replace them. Their original body will never need to take risks. Thus, in the deity world, the lords of the material world generally have a very special status. Because even if you kill them, you will only kill their avatar at most. Thus, they are more fearless in their actions. Persei said, of course, unless this mortal world gradually ages and collapses. However, since they have become lords, they will try their best to delay this time. Mortal worlds can be maintained for a very long time. As long as the mortal world they have refined is not destroyed, they will not die. The sorcerer god is such a lord. Persei said. Dongbu Shuiying's heart was heavy. Countless mortal worlds make up the entire material world. The rejection of the entire material world is extremely strong. Although there are many powerful existences in the deity world who are very powerful in space-time, they are unable to send some transcendence into the material world. It is because the rejection of the material world is too strong. Persei said, only the temporal temple can send transcendence into the material world. However, only transcendence can enter. If it is a deity, they will not be able to enter at all. A universe deity in a mortal world that he has completely refined. Who can kill him? Persei said, that sorcerer god can be said to be immortal. Since he is planning to start a war, this kind of existence, if he does not make a move, it will be very terrifying. Dongbu Shuang nodded lightly. Persei only explained this in detail because he considered Dongbu Shuang to be a life and death companion. What a pity. Dongbu Shuang sighed inwardly. Xia people had given birth to many deities, but to reach the peak of the deity realm and refine the world core within 10,000 years was truly too difficult. No one had ever done it before. If someone could do it, then the Xia people's world would truly be impregnable. How could other powers be qualified to scheme against it? As they chatted along the way, Persei, his servants, and Dongbu Shuang finally arrived at the edge of Crimson Rock Mountain. Looking at the towering Crimson Rock Mountain with no end in sight, Dongbu Shuang turned his head and looked behind him. In the distance, there was a woman in a silver gown watching them. That was his wife. There was also Palace Lord Chen, Qiu Qi Bai, Si Kong Yang, Mountain Lord He, City Lady Bu, and the other transcendents of the Xia people. I will be back, Dongbu Shuang said. He then turned his head. Come, let's go up. Persei, Dongbu Shuang, and the other two were the last of the 4 teams. They all stepped onto the stone path on Crimson Rock Mountain and carefully advanced. The entire Crimson Rock Mountain was emitting an endless amount of heat. Occasionally, there would be hot air currents and even more terrifying flames. However, the flames were spurting out from the cracks of Crimson Rock Mountain, so there were traces to follow. As long as they were careful, vigilant, and observed the surrounding traces without the slightest bit of carelessness, they wouldn't be so unlucky as to be affected by the flames. Not long after, Persei, Dongbu Shuang, and the other two had already reached the end of the stone path. There was a huge black gate there. The edges of the gate had mysterious golden decorations. The gate rumbled open once again, and the 3 teams in front had already entered. Let's go. Dongbu Shuang didn't turn his head and directly walked through the black gate with Persei and the others. Hong long long the black gate closed once again. We're in. As soon as they entered, the gate behind them quickly closed. Dongbu Shuang, Persei, and the other two were looking ahead. At this time, Wu Ma Hai's team, Meishan Master's team, and the golden-robed youth Ken Huang's team were right next to them. The three teams weren't in a hurry to move. They all stood at the entrance of the gate and looked into the distance. At a glance, this was a vast island. Beyond the island was a boundless starry sky. The starry sky was resplendent, and countless stars were constantly moving and changing their trajectories. His gaze was still on the stone sculptures that covered almost every corner of the island. That almighty being from the deity world didn't carve well. Why did he carve so many for no reason? Dongbu Shuang smiled. Floating island, the most dangerous thing was these stone sculptures. Each stone sculpture had the power to suppress an era. More importantly, there were probably more than 100,000 stone statues on the island, and they were all united. If one of the stone statues discovered a transcendent, the other stone statues would know and come to intercept it. Fortunately, the island was big enough. Fortunately, the stone sculptures were slightly slower, so there was a chance of survival. Otherwise, it wouldn't just be a 9 out of 10 chance of survival, it would be a 10 out of 10 chance of survival. After all, each stone sculpture had the power to suppress an era. Dongbu Shuang and Persei wouldn't be able to withstand the encirclement of over 100 of them. These stone sculptures were also known as the stone sculpture guards. These stone sculptures were carved by the almighty being from the deity world. They are quite mystical. Persei said, the stone sculpture guards look through their eyes. Their eyes can see through all disguises and concealment. But as long as they don't see it, there won't be a problem. An old thief, Uncle Fu, the two of you must be careful. If you're really discovered by the stone sculpture guards, immediately escape with your speed and hide as much as possible. Don't fight with them. If you get entangled, you're finished. Understood. An old thief and Uncle Fu both nodded. As for the other dangers of the floating island, the two of you should be able to deal with them if you're careful. Dongbu Shuang, you also have to be careful. Although the two of us are strong, if we're trapped by a group of stone sculpture guards, more and more of them will gather, and we'll be finished. Don't think that you can hide in the mirage. These stone sculpture guards are very mystical. No matter what method you use to hide, it's useless. Persei said. Understood. Dongbu Shuang nodded. You're much better than us. Persei looked into the distance. As long as you reach the floating island and cross the meteor bridge, you should be able to obtain the antidote for the 6 ghosts' resentment. Dongbu Shuang looked into the distance. At the end of the island in front of him, there were countless meteors. These meteors were all connected, leading to the depths of the starry sky. Countless meteors connected, forming the meteor bridge. At the end of the meteor bridge, it was a jade-green vine that seemed to pass through the entire starry sky. This vine connected all the way to the highest point of the starry sky. On the vine, there were many huge leaves that were even larger than the stars. According to the information, as long as you pass through the floating island and reach the end of the meteor bridge, you'll be able to make a request and obtain the treasure you need. Dongbu Shuang said. Hopefully, there's an antidote for the 6 ghosts' resentment there. The floating island, the meteor bridge, this was a path that many demigods had to cross. Ancestor Black Wind, as well as many other worldly visitors, had all taken this path. For an era suppressor, this was a path of death with a slim chance of survival. I can't do that. I want to continue walking along the sky-reaching vine. Persei shook his head. Only by passing through the sky-reaching vine and reaching a higher space will there be treasures that even world deities desire. Passing through the sky-reaching vine. Dongbu Shuang shook his head. That's no ordinary danger. 9 deaths and 1 life. That's why I'm gambling with my life. Persei said. Crossing the Crimson Rock Mountain. It was split into 2 parts. The first part was the floating island and the meteor bridge. If one succeeded, they could make a request and obtain the treasure they needed. The second part was to follow the sky-reaching vine and enter a higher space. There were treasures that even world deities desired. This Crimson Rock Mountain was used by that deity world expert to choose his disciple. Persei shook his head. Anyone who comes to challenge the Crimson Rock Mountain will receive some rewards after passing the first part. The rewards for the second part will be even greater. That's why even if one cannot become the disciple of that deity world expert, many demigods still went to challenge the Crimson Rock Mountain. That's how they choose their disciple. Dongbo Shuang shook his head and laughed. Dongbo Shuang knew his own limits. The most important reason he came here was to cure the poison. Moreover, he wanted to live. He would not be so arrogant as to gamble with his life. After all, his life was very important to the Xia people. Furthermore, his realm of comprehension was still not high. In the future, when all three of his grade 2 true meanings had reached the peak of the stage 3 realm, or even the deity heart realm, with his secret skill, he would be able to display an even greater strength. Wouldn't it be safer for him to not become a deity first? To those mighty world deity existences, even if such a heaven-defying transcendent was willing to come down, they could not afford to do so. The cost of transportation was too high. Sending a transcendent at the level of Persei already made them feel heartache. They could not even bear to send two. Not to mention those who were much stronger than Persei. The 4 teams were all very serious. Their goal was to pass through the sky-reaching vine and enter a higher space. Even though there was a slim chance of survival, they had to gamble on it. Thus, they had to be careful from the start. As long as the team members survived, they would be able to walk further in the later stages. We must pass through the sky-reaching vine and enter a higher space. The Maishan Master's eyes shone faintly. For the sake of this day, he had chosen to complete 3 hell-rank missions, break free from the control of the temporal temple, and come to the Xia people's world. A higher space. Persei looked at the enormous sky-reaching vine that seemed to pass through the entire starry sky. His eyes were filled with killing intent. I must return alive. I must make my flying sword villa flourish and kill all my enemies. My clan has been destroyed. I, Wu Ma Hai, have lived to this day. This time, I have a slim chance of survival. As long as I survive, I can change everything. The golden-armored teenager, Wu Ma Hai, clenched his fists so tightly that black cracks could be faintly seen on them. This is our chance to turn the situation around. Isn't it just a slim chance of survival? We've already gone through 2 hell-rank missions. Didn't we get through them? The golden-robed teenager, Ken Huang, spoke casually. However, the tall man and the bewitching woman beside him had solemn expressions on their faces. This time, they had agreed to come. They had all wanted to take a gamble. Dongbo Shuang was also watching. The pressure on him was relatively light. As long as he could cure the poison, he would have succeeded. Apart from curing the poison, Dongbo Shuang also wanted to obtain enough treasures from Crimson Rock Mountain to increase the chances of the Xia people's victory in the upcoming war. Everyone, those stone sculpture guards are extremely dangerous. If we get surrounded by them, we'll be finished. Thus, it's not good for us to have too many people moving together. Wu Ma Hai said. It's best to keep a distance of more than 5,000 kilometers from each other. We'll make a move first. The golden-armored teenager, Wu Ma Hai, finished speaking. He led his subordinates, Bo Bo and Ba Han, out of the safety zone around the black door. Following a beautiful stone path in the distance, they carefully advanced into the depths of the forest. Star. Chapter 310. Wu Ma Hai and the others disappeared into the depths of the forest. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, a faint roar could be heard from afar. We've been discovered. The Maishan master raised his eyebrows. Other than the stone statue guards that cover the entire floating island, there are still countless dangers lurking around. It's impossible to sneak past them. The golden-robed youth, Ken Huang, chuckled. The Maishan master nodded and said, "We're going in as well." He didn't stand on ceremony and immediately set off with the white-robed girl and the black-robed man. They didn't even ask for our opinion. The golden-robed youth, Ken Huang, looked at Dongbu Shuang and Persei, Dongbu Shuang, "Are you going first, or should I go first?" Persei and Dongbu Shuang looked at each other. "We're not in a hurry," Persei said. "All right, then we'll be third." The golden-robed youth, Ken Huang, said. Not long after, Ken Huang's team also set off. Persei was very patient. Dongbu Shuang wasn't in a hurry either. Sounds could be heard from different areas of the floating island. Obviously, there were battles going on. "It's about time. Let's go." Chen Jiu laughed. With the 4 teams moving in front and behind, everyone will be able to attract the attention of some enemies, which will make things easier for us. However, don't be careless. The moment we are careless, Dong Bo Shuang and I might both die on the floating sky island. Understood. I'll follow you all the way. Don't worry. Saying so, Dongbu Shuang disappeared into the mirage. An old thief and Uncle Fu looked at each other. The floating island was still extremely dangerous for them. "Let's go." Persei brought an old thief, Uncle Fu, and Dongbu Shuang, who was walking in the mirage, to the floating island. Inside the ethereal extent, Shuang stealthily advanced. His mirage illuminated an area of 5,000 kilometers, allowing him to observe every movement within that area. Furthermore, with the help of his 9 mirage avatars, he was able to observe everything from high up in the sky. Even if he was 5,000 kilometers away, he would still be able to see the general situation. Looking at it, Dongbu Shuang was filled with emotions. Wu Mahai's team charged at the very front. Because they were too far away, the view was rather blurry. Their team was rather mysterious, and their movements were very quiet. Occasionally, a battle would break out. The golden-robed youth Ken Huang's team had already surpassed the Maishan Master's team, and was now in second place. Their team was a bit more domineering. Whether it was the statue sentinels or other attacks, the golden-robed youth Ken Huang would attack from thousands of kilometers away. The stone statues were at a loss, and they couldn't even find their enemy. Ken Huang's team advanced very quickly because they were constantly sweeping away enemies from afar. The third team was the Maishan Master's team. The Maishan Master's team was the strangest of them all. As they advanced, the space around them twisted and changed. Sometimes, the team would be in front, and sometimes, behind. Although they couldn't teleport within the Crimson Rock Mountain due to the powerful seal, the Maishan Master's team was too good at manipulating space. As they advanced, they didn't encounter any enemies at all. Hua! From afar, the statue sentinel turned its head, its eyes glowing with a faint golden light. Its gaze seemed to be able to see through everything. Even Dongbu Shuaying's mirage felt like it was being penetrated. However, the Maishan Master's team was different. They had twisted the space around them, causing the statue sentinels' gazes to follow the distorted space, distorting it as well. Naturally, they couldn't see the Maishan Master's team. Their manipulation of space is too terrifying. Dongbu Shuang was inwardly shocked. To be able to become a captain, he really isn't ordinary. Dongbu Shuang. A voice forcefully penetrated the mirage. Remember, don't use your mirage doppelganger or an old thief's illusion doppelgangers easily. Even if you use them, the more low-key they are, the better. Otherwise, if a bunch of doppelgangers appear, the statue sentinels will think that we have more than 10 intruders. I'm afraid they will send more stone statue sentinels to surround and attack us. I understand. Dongbu Shuang replied. At the same time, he was shocked. To be able to transmit sound into the mirage, it was clear that there was a way to attack the mirage. Dongbu Shuaying's team was also advancing carefully. Just like how Wu Ma Hai's team had advanced for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the most dangerous statue sentinels on this floating island were the closer they were to the meteor bridge, the more of them there were. This was especially true for the large area at the edge of the meteor bridge. Almost half of the stone statue sentinels were gathered there. However, the other areas were much more sparsely populated. Crossing an arched bridge, they advanced along a stone road next to a river. Dongbu Shui Ying's team was very cautious. Suddenly, a huge dark cyan head emerged from the river. It had a bald horn, a bloody mouth with fangs, and dark cyan scales. It was about to rush out. The crisis came very suddenly. Persei glanced to the side. Boom! The shadow of a golden dragon appeared out of thin air. The upper body of this golden dragon was very solid, but the back was completely illusory. It waved its sharp claws, and an extremely tyrannical claw directly slapped the head of the dark cyan mutated beast that emerged from the river. With a boom, the dark cyan mutated beast was slapped down before it could completely rush out of the water. Let's leave quickly. Don't get entangled. The statue sentinels will definitely pay attention to this place. Persei's voice simultaneously rang in Uncle Fu and an old thief's ears, as well as in the mirage. Xiao! Their speed was extremely fast. In an instant, they had rushed dozens of li along the stone road, entering the depths of the mountain. The dark cyan mutated beast that emerged from the river once again tried to find Dongbu Shui Ying's group, but it was already nowhere to be found. It could only let out an unwilling roar. The movements of the previous battle had also attracted the attention of the statue sentinels, and they were approaching. Persei's strength was indeed very strong. He could also attack from a very long distance, and he could forcefully attack from thousands of li away. Every time he attacked, the shadow of a dragon would appear. It was either a golden dragon, a black dragon, or a blood dragon. The only similarity was that all of them were vicious dragons. Their attacks were all very cruel and vicious. When dealing with different dangers, different dragon shadows would appear, and they would quickly eliminate the danger from a long distance. Even the statue sentinels were directly slapped by the dragon claws, and their bodies rolled over 100 times. This also made it easy for Dongbu Shui Ying's group to advance. It was different when one was strong. To an existence that could suppress an era, the floating island had a slim chance of survival. But to Persei, Ken Huang, Meishan Master, and Wu Ma Hai, their chances were much higher. The closest to the meteor bridge is the most dangerous place. There are tens of thousands of statue sentinels there, and they are blocking the bridgehead. That is the most difficult part. Persei transmitted, thus, we must be able to withstand the danger in the early stages. We do not have the qualifications to relax. Through his mirage avatar, Dongbu Shuang looked from afar. He could see the end of the floating island, which was also the bridgehead of the meteor bridge. That area was densely packed with at least 50,000 statue sentinels, and they were not more than 10 li away from each other. They had completely blocked the area of 1,000 li around the bridgehead of the meteor bridge. It would be difficult to pass through. Wu Ma Hai's team has started to charge. Dongbu Shuang saw it as well. Wu Ma Hai's team was rapidly approaching. Boom! Suddenly, a battle broke out. Wu Ma Hai's team suddenly erupted with a dazzling golden light. The entire team's speed began to skyrocket. In just 2 seconds, the entire team had traversed over 1,000 li of the battle zone. One must know that along the way, they had also encountered the frenzied attacks of countless statue sentinels. In just 2 seconds, they had killed their way to the meteor bridge. Wu Ma Hai's team, Bo is dead. Persei's voice rang out in the mirage avatar. Bo is dead. Dongbu Shuang was shocked. He did not doubt the accuracy of the information at all. This was because the members of the 4 teams had left behind chi avatars, magic avatars, and the like in the Xia people's world. This way, they would be able to communicate with each other more quickly. They were also afraid that they would be forced to split up in Crimson Rock Mountain. This way, they would be able to contact each other better. Because Dongbo Shuang did not have any qi in his body, he was the only one who did not leave behind an avatar in the Xia people's world. Thus, the moment Bobo died, his qi avatar would naturally die as well. The other teams would immediately know about it. Dongbo Shuang, your Mirage avatar should be able to silently observe from afar. How did Wu Mahai's team get through the last stage? Percy asked. They relied on speed to force their way through, Dongbo Shuang replied. Star. Chapter 311. He actually did it so recklessly. He actually didn't lie. Percy frowned. He wanted to gather as much information as he could on how the previous teams had passed, so that he could learn from their mistakes and have a better chance of passing. Dongbo Shuang, describe in detail what he did, Percy asked. Dongbo Shuang also described in detail. Only his Mirage doppelganger could look down from above so fearlessly. If it was someone else trying to look down from above, they would be easily discovered by the stone sculpture guardians. Dongbo Shuaying's Mirage doppelganger could change shape. It could even become a part of the Mirage itself. It was the Mirage. Thus, even if the stone sculpture guardians looked up, even if their gazes penetrated the Mirage and passed through the Mirage doppelganger, they would only feel that it was just a part of the Mirage. Thus, unless the Mirage doppelganger was activated, it would be impossible to detect it. Time passed, second by second. Dongbo Shuang and his team advanced cautiously. Along the way, there was no need for Dongbo Shuang to do anything. Just the dragon shadows released by Percy were enough to eliminate all danger. Ken Huang's team is moving. Dongbo Shuang advanced cautiously. However, his Mirage doppelganger was still observing the situation from afar. Boom! They were too far away, but they could vaguely make out that the troop's speed also began to crazily rise. The densely packed stone statue guards violently surrounded them, and some of them even leapt into the air, attacking from above. For a moment, they covered the entire sky and attacked the team from all directions. On the surface of the team, a mirage of a strange dragon turtle appeared, protecting the entire team. However, it did not even manage to resist for half a second. Under the frenzied attacks of the stone sculpture guardians, the dragon turtle's mirage instantly collapsed. What followed was a dazzling sword light. The sword light was resplendent, and in an instant, the stone sculpture guardians either fell, were sent flying, or collided with other stone sculpture guardians. However, there were still more stone sculpture guardians attacking. Too many. Dongbo Shuang shook his head. The entire process lasted for about 5 seconds. Ken Huang's team finally reached the meteor bridge. When they landed on the floating meteor, the stone statue guards stopped attacking. In the world of the Xia people, on a grassland, there were many figures either sitting cross-legged, walking around, or sitting on rocks. They were the Qi doppelgangers and magic power doppelgangers of the members of the 4 teams. Some of them even contained demonic energy. Sister Xue Wei. The golden-robed young man, Ken Huang, was sitting on a boulder. He had been calm, but now his face was filled with disbelief and terror. Xue Wei. The tall, muscular man next to her also trembled. How could this be? How could this be? The golden-clad youngster, Ken Huang, could not take it anymore. He fell to his knees, his body trembling. Why? I was so close. I was so close to saving you. Why? Ever since he was captured by the Temporal Temple and became a reincarnator. Ken Huang was originally the weakest member of the team. The bewitching woman, Big Sister Xue Wei, who had just died, was already a legendary figure. She was the one who thought highly of Ken Huang and recruited him into her team. Furthermore, she had always taken care of him. The two were like siblings and had a deep relationship. Ken Huang had been captured when he was still a mortal. Now, he was close to becoming a deity. Captain. The tall, muscular man was also extremely sorrowful. He lightly patted Ken Huang's shoulder. Why? Why did it turn out like this? I was too arrogant. I shouldn't have agreed. I shouldn't have entered the Crimson Rock Mountain. Ken Huang was filled with hatred. Even though he was prepared for the entire team to be annihilated, he had sworn to fight to the death. But when big sister Shui Wei, who had gone through thick and thin with him, died in front of him, he still found it hard to accept. If one died in the Crimson Rock Mountain, even the Temporal Temple could not retrieve their soul. They would truly be dead forever. This is not your fault. This was what we agreed upon. If you want to blame someone, blame the Temporal Temple. The tall, muscular man said in a low voice, it was the Temporal Temple that forced us to walk on the brink of death time and time again. If it wasn't for its guidance, how could our team have fallen into such a predicament? It made us choose to come to the Crimson Rock Mountain in the end. The golden-robed youth, Ken Huang, stood up. After all, he had experienced too many life-and-death situations. He forcefully suppressed his grief. Martial Emperor. The golden-robed youth, Ken Huang, looked at the nearby Meishan master. I really envy you. You had the courage to accept 3 hell-grade missions, escape the Temporal Temple, and regain your freedom. Let's look forward to the future. The Meishan master glanced at Ken Huang, but did not say anything else. Wu Ma Hai's team had lost Bo Bo, while Ken Huang's team had lost the bewitching woman, Shui Wei. This caused the 2 teams behind them to become even more nervous. Clearly, from the looks of it, most deity-grade scrolls were of limited help, especially the defensive ones. This was because the entire team's large-scale protection wouldn't be able to last long under the attacks of the densely packed stone sculpture protectors. Unless they used tens of scrolls consecutively, they might be able to hold on. To charge through, first, it depended on one's strength. Second, it depended on luck. If they could charge through the gaps of the stone sculpture protector's attacks in an extremely short period of time, that would be enough. If they couldn't charge through, then they would be doomed. The more teams there were, the bigger the target, and the harder it would be to charge through the gaps. However, there were experts like Persei, Ken Huang, Wu Ma Hai, and the Meishan master in the team. Thus, they were willing to move together. The Meishan master and his team have started moving. As Dongbo Shuang watched, he informed Persei of the situation. Because they were constantly advancing, the distance between Dongbo Shuang and the Meishan master's team was very short. They were already within 5,000 kilometers of each other. They could even be seen clearly by relying on the mirage. I've noticed it too. Persei borrowed the range of his true meaning domain to see the situation of the battle. This. Dongbo Shuang was suddenly stunned. It was one thing for the other 2 experts in the Meishan master's team to display their techniques. However, when the Meishan master revealed his techniques, Dongbo Shuang was still shocked. His arms suddenly lengthened, becoming more than 6 meters long. His 2 arms were rapidly attacking the stone statue guards that were trying to stop them. Furthermore, the space around him was like a swamp. The closer the stone sculpture protectors got, the slower their speed became. For a moment, the Meishan master actually relied on his own strength to block the attacks of the surrounding stone sculpture protectors. Of course, the surrounding space was only so big, and the stone sculpture protectors were about the same height as an ordinary person. In a short period of time, only 100 stone sculpture protectors could attack simultaneously. However, there were attacks coming from all directions. His arms could not protect him at all. Every part of the Meishan master's body was a weapon. His head, back, legs, they were all used to attack. He was extremely powerful in every aspect. True meaning only me. There's even a deity armor. Persei's voice transmitted into the mirage. True meaning only me. Dongbo Shuang was startled. A grade 2 true meaning, the true meaning only me was a purely body-related true meaning. It did not have any offensive profound mysteries, nor did it have any other profound mysteries. It only had a single purpose, to unleash the full potential of one's body. The true meaning only me believed that the body itself was a heaven and earth, a universe, containing endless profound mysteries. There was no need to care about anything else in the external world. As long as one could comprehend one's own body, one could similarly become a deity and become unparalleled. This was only me. Thus, those who grasped hold of the true meaning only me all had extremely tyrannical bodies. They were even more terrifying than the demonic physiques of the lords of Ulan and General Ku Meng. It was a pure and extreme body-related true meaning. Only me seeks the internal. Space seeks the external. One internal and one external, this Maishan master is truly formidable. Furthermore, he actually managed to get his hands on a deity armor. Persei exclaimed. Dongbo Shuang also exclaimed. He also knew. Ever since Crimson Rock Mountain descended into the Xia people's world, the deities who wanted to send the deity armor to the Xia people's world had to pay a huge price to do so. Those magnificent existences had to send Wu Ma Hai, the lords of Ulan, and Persei. Sending a deity armor was equivalent to sending a demigod like Persei. They could not bear to do so. Furthermore, within Crimson Rock Mountain, the deity armor was very effective against frontal attacks. However, there were many attacks that could ignore the deity armor and penetrate into one's body. I've heard that the Maishan master has been in the Xia people's world for a long time now. Persei transmitted. Thus, there is no need to pay the transportation fee to send him down. The deity armor's effectiveness is limited against some unique attacks, so it is not worth sending him down. However, the Maishan master has the true meaning of only me, and his body is already tyrannical. Coupled with the deity armor, it was too difficult to kill him. Coupled with the true meaning of space, his survivability is probably the strongest amongst us. Dongbo Shuang also agreed. Under the direct resistance of the Maishan master, he was able to bring his team up the meteor bridge. He was also the only one who survived. It's our turn. Not long after, Persei, an old thief, Uncle Fu, and Dongbo Shuang approached. Tens of thousands of stone sculpture guards blocked off all directions. There were no loopholes to exploit. Dongbo Shuang and the other three had already discussed their countermeasures. The densely packed stone sculpture protectors covering an area of 500 kilometers suddenly turned their heads towards a single direction, only to see a large group of transcendents rushing over at high speed. Mountain Lord He, Faction Head Si Kong Yang, Chiu Chi Bai, Great Elder Ao Lan, the demonic faction's third priest, Monarch Qing Yan, City Lady Bu, Shuang, and many other transcendents. Dongbo Shuaying's 9 mirage doppelgangers transformed into 9 familiar demigods. Furthermore, all of them were walking within the mirage, so they were naturally discovered by the stone sculpture guards. After all, the mirage doppelgangers had already been formed. An old thief was even more formidable. He had condensed a true deity heart using the true meaning of illusions, and was most proficient in creating illusion doppelgangers. At this moment, he had condensed a total of 36 illusion doppelgangers, each of them at the peak of demigod, roughly the strength of ghost deity Knight Feng Dong. All of them had different appearances and auras. They were probably the demigods that an old thief knew. My flying sword manners demigods are here. The entire group of transcendent demigods rushed towards the stone sculpture guards. However, Persei, Dongbo Shuang, and the others were all nervous. Life and death would be decided in this short distance of 1,000 li. One must know that the methods of the other teams were also powerful. Other than the Maishan master's team, the other teams had all lost a comrade. But soon after, they reformed again. One could see Si Kong Yang, Palace Lord Chen, Ao Lan Grand Elder, Chiu Chi Bai, and the rest being smashed to death one after another before coming back to life. At first, the stone statue protectors thought that these enemies had some special life-saving methods. But after killing them 2 to 3 times, they gradually came to a realization. After all, it wasn't just the mirage doppelganger. Even the large group of illusion doppelganger had revived after being killed. If it was just one of them, it could still be explained if they had some sort of life-saving heaven-defying true meaning. But if it was a large group of them, then it wasn't normal. They are all illusion doppelganger. The stone statue protectors came to a realization and began attacking those enemies who hadn't died yet. Naturally, they were attacking Dongbush Shuaing, Persei, and the rest. But by the time they came to their senses, Dongbush Shuaing and the rest had already charged 250 kilometers ahead of the group of stone statue protectors. They were roughly 500 to 600 kilometers away from the meteor bridge. You only realized it now. Ha ha ha, scram for me. Persei shouted. In an instant, 8 arms appeared. Each arm was covered in a layer of gray metal. His arms expanded, reaching a length of 7 to 8 meters, and he began attacking in all directions. His palms seemed to be protecting the entire team. His 8 arms were displaying all sorts of powerful attacks. Some were cruel and ruthless, some were sinister, and some were strange. All sorts of attacks had broadened Dongbue Shuiying's horizons. He can actually manifest 8 arms, and only his true meaning is extraordinary. Dongbue Shuiying sighed inwardly. He and Persei had discussed this when they decided on the plan to charge into the floating island, so he knew about the true meanings and techniques of every single member of the team. He had also told Persei that he had 3 grade 2 true meanings, extreme piercing, mirage, and star, as well as the star meteor annihilation. It was also from Persei that Dongbue Shuiying found out that the star meteor annihilation was actually a secret skill. Persei had also told him about an old thief and Uncle Fu's techniques, as well as his own. The 2 true meanings that Persei had grasped were also very powerful. They were the true meaning of only me and the true meaning of 8 dragons. The true meaning of only me pursued the pinnacle of the body. To complement the true meaning of 8 dragons, he had even bought an 8-armed creature from the deity world and dissected it over and over again. He had even tried to find a similar technique to refine it, allowing his body to form 8 arms. One had to know that these arms could not display their power just by appearing. Transformation. As a transcendent, he had countless transformations. Forming 1,000 arms was a small matter. However, only a normal body could display its full power. Thus, it was extremely difficult to form 8 arms that could display sufficient power. Fortunately, he had comprehended the true meaning of only me, which was why he had dissected the 8-armed creature. Now, he had 8 arms. Complementing the true meaning of 8 dragons, Persei's 2 true meanings were able to complement each other perfectly. His close combat strength was extremely terrifying, even above that of the Lords of Ulan and the Maishan Master. Of course, the Maishan Master and the Lords of Ulan each had their own advantages. Persei was only strong in close combat. Hong hong hong. Dongbue Shuiying brandished his spear and executed the star meteor annihilation. Every single move was filled with power. Those stone sculpture guardians would be sent flying with just a touch, and they would fall with just a scratch. Persei's 8 arms were intimidating in all directions. Dongbue Shuiying's spear was at the side, covering for any openings. There was also the true meaning of gravity's repulsion. For a moment, Dongbue Shuiying and Uncle Fu were almost completely blocked. However, even if they had 8 arms, there were even more stone sculpture guardians. For a moment, there were over 100 stone sculpture guardians attacking them. Si La, one of the stone sculpture guardians' claws pierced through the goateed old man's chest. Although Persei was by the side, he didn't help the old man. Ha ha ha, it's useless. The goateed old man's body dissipated. Not far away, an illusion avatar transformed into the goateed old man. Shwa shwa shwa. His body was unpredictable, and every illusion avatar could transform into his true body at any moment. These stone sculpture guardians were unable to attack him at all. Formidable. Dongbu Shuang praised silently. After the true meaning of illusions condensed into a true deity heart, it would possess a heaven-defying ability. The true body could switch between the illusion avatars and the true body. However, the distance between the illusion avatars and the true body could only be within 100 meters. Even if the space was sealed, the true body could still switch. Because at this stage, the true body would have already started to transform into an illusion, allowing the illusion avatars to condense into a true body at any moment. Thus, with this move, it would be extremely difficult to kill an old thief. Unfortunately, the only weakness was that it had to be within 100 meters. As long as the enemy's attack covered 100 meters, an old thief would still die. If he had just switched to an illusion avatar, and that illusion avatar was killed at the same time, he would die as well. Usually, it wouldn't be so coincidental. After all, there were 36 illusion avatars. Persei's 8 gray metallic arms swept in all directions. Dongbu Shuang was also helping out. The two of them split their attention to protect Uncle Fu. Just like that. The final 500 to 600 li distance was crossed. Hong! Dongbu Shuaying's body landed on a huge floating meteorite. Although this meteorite was called a meteorite, it was actually over 100 li in diameter. Its entire body was made of a single piece of rock, and there were even some veined patterns on its surface. Only after landing on the meteorite did Dongbu Shuang heave a sigh of relief. On this huge meteorite, there were 3 other teams, Wu Mahai, Ken Huang, and Maishan Master. They were not in a hurry to act. They looked at Persei's and Dongbu Shuaying's teams with astonishment. This team's overall strength was the strongest. Persei's strength was much stronger than what they had expected. The people chosen by the upper echelons of the Bloodshed Tavern were indeed extraordinary. Chapter 313. The 4 teams were all on the first meteorite of the long meteor bridge. The true meaning of only me is able to cultivate 8 arms. Admirable, admirable, the Maishan Master praised. He had grasped 2 true meanings, one of which was the true meaning of only me, so he was very clear on how difficult it was to form 8 arms. If we were to ask who has the highest chance of passing through the sky-reaching vine, it would most likely be you, Maishan Master, Persei said. Sky-reaching vine. With this deity armor of mine? The Maishan clan master turned his head and looked at the distant end of the meteor bridge. That enormous sky-reaching vine almost pierced through the entire starry sky. The sky-reaching vine is an extremely terrifying plant in the deity world. I'm afraid that even the great majority of world deity existences aren't a match for this sky-reaching vine. But in Crimson Rock Mountain, it is only used to test disciples. This path is too difficult. Wu Mahai, Ken Huang, Dongbu Shuang, Persei, and the others were all looking at the towering sky-reaching vine. In the deity world, to become a disciple of a powerful existence, one must either be a legend among legends, an absolute transcendent with a grade 1 true meaning. Or one must evolve a grade 1 deity heart after becoming a deity, Wu Mahai said in a low voice. Among us, only brother Dongbu Shuang has this talent, Persei said. A grade 1 true meaning meant that one had to grasp it at the transcendent realm. A grade 1 deity heart was slightly easier. One could become a deity with a grade 2 deity heart, and then rely on accumulating experience to evolve it to a grade 1 deity heart. However, the earlier one grasped a grade 1 deity heart, the earlier one would be able to pry into the essence of the laws of heaven and earth. Who knows, brother Dongbu Shuang might be the one to walk the furthest. The Maishan Master laughed. You praise me too much. Dongbu Shuang shook his head as he looked at the end of the meteor bridge. As long as I can pass through the meteor bridge and get rid of the 6 ghosts' resentment hexing poison, that will be enough. Sky-reaching vine. People like the Maishan Master, Persei, and Wu Mahai were gambling with their lives. They all had a slim chance of survival. In terms of strength, he might be close to them in terms of attack power, but he was much weaker in terms of survival. Persei and the Mysian master both cultivated the true meaning of only me, and their bodies were even stronger than the lords of Ulan. As for himself, if he were to encounter some powerful attacks, he would probably be killed in one hit. After all, he was borrowing the might of his true meaning. True meanings could draw upon the might of the heavens and earth, which was indeed powerful. The true meaning of Star's protection was not bad, but if it could not hold on, if the green armored protector could not hold on as well, his frail body would most likely be finished in a single blow. Immortal body. His star meteor annihilation's laws of profound mysteries were enough to destroy General Ku Meng's body, unless it was an attack like the sorcerer god's saber that was barely controlled and didn't contain any laws of profound mysteries. But that was clearly impossible. The deeper one went into Crimson Rock Mountain, the more terrifying the laws of profound mysteries would be. Even those stone sculpture protectors could easily pass through the mirage, let alone the enemies on the sky-reaching vine. Dongbua Shuang is right. There's no point in thinking so much. Right now, we have to cross the meteor bridge before anything else. Wu Ma Hai said in a low voice, previously, we were the first to cross. This time, let's do the opposite. How about it? We have no objections. The golden-robed youth Ken Huang and the Mysian master both looked at Dongbua Shuang and Persei. Once the situation was reversed, then Dongbua Shuang and the others, who were the last to set off previously, would be the first to cross. No objections. Dongbua Shuang and Persei exchanged glances before saying. This was a small matter. Regardless of whether it was the intelligence reports from the Xia people or the world deity existences, all of them had detailed descriptions of the dangers within Crimson Rock Mountain. The dangers on the meteor bridge were very clear. There wasn't much of a difference between who went first and who went last. Dongbua Shuang, Persei, Uncle Fu, and an old thief were all discussing a plan. There are two dangers on the meteor bridge. Persei said, one is in the middle of the meteor bridge, and the other is at the end of the meteor bridge. As long as we can pass through these two dangers, we will successfully cross the meteor bridge. At that time, Dongbua Shuang, you will have hope of curing the poison. Dongbua Shuang laughed, I hope so. In the middle of the meteor bridge, there is a group of deity world creatures. Persei said, they are the extremely common flying venomous scorpions. In the deity world, there are deities who specially cultivate some special creatures. They have even cultivated hundreds of thousands of deity-level flying venomous scorpions. They cover the sky and cover the earth. Even a star would be completely devoured in no time. Dongbua Shuang secretly sighed in admiration. The deity world and the mortal world were indeed different. However, the meteor bridge is not that dangerous. The flying venomous scorpions in the middle of the meteor bridge will send out a corresponding team according to the outsiders. For every outsider, they will send out a team. Our team has a total of 4 people, so we will encounter 4 teams of flying venomous scorpions. A team of flying venomous scorpions is composed of 1 deity-level flying venomous scorpions and 10 ordinary flying venomous scorpions. Persei said, in other words, we will encounter 4 deity-level flying venomous scorpions and 40 ordinary flying venomous scorpions. For us, it is even more dangerous than crossing the floating island. Dongbua Shuang, an old thief, and Uncle Fu all nodded. Meteor Bridge, compared to the floating island, it was even more unsuitable for a large group of people to cross. For example, if 10 people were to cross together, there would be 10 deity-level flying venomous scorpions and 100 ordinary flying venomous scorpions. Moving alone was instead very advantageous. Relying on speed. They would rather fight with ordinary flying venomous scorpions than touch deity-level flying venomous scorpions. Using all means at their disposal, they would quickly cross to the other half of the meteor bridge. This way, the flying venomous scorpions would not chase after them. The meteor bridge only needed to be crossed. There was no need to kill these flying venomous scorpions. A demigod that could suppress an era still had some hope of crossing. In this Crimson Rock Mountain, the further one went, the harsher the individual requirements would be. This is the plan. The flying venomous scorpions are known for their speed, and their flight is unpredictable. Everyone, be careful. Persei said. Only Persei could keep up with the deity-level flying venomous scorpions in terms of speed. Dongbo Shuang and the other two would not be able to keep up. Ordinary flying venomous scorpions could reach a speed of 600 kilometers per second, and they could change directions extremely quickly. Deity-level flying venomous scorpions could reach a speed of 1,000 kilometers per second. Everyone, be careful. Dongbo Shuang also took a deep breath and was very serious. As long as they could cross the meteor bridge, there would be hope for them to get rid of the poison. He believed that with the rewards that Crimson Rock Mountain gave to outsiders, they would not be disappointed. Begin. Swoosh. Dongbo Shuang and the other three instantly flew at high speed along the meteor bridge. This time, Dongbo Shuang had completely entered the mirage. Because the flying venomous scorpions were relatively small, the effect of the gravity domain was even weaker. Moreover, the deity-level flying venomous scorpions were too powerful. If they were stabbed, he would probably die. Therefore, he naturally had to enter the mirage. As for the other three teams, they were watching Dongbo Shuang and the other four leave. After a while, they also followed behind, maintaining a distance of 10,000 kilometers so that they could observe the battle more accurately. What do you think about them? Can they cross the bridge alive? Last time, they managed to survive. This time, I'm afraid it won't be so easy. Under the attack of the deity-level flying venomous scorpions, Dongbo Shuang and Persei might not even be able to protect themselves. The meteor bridge was hundreds of millions of kilometers long. The first half of the bridge was filled with black meteorites, while the second half was filled with white meteorites. Hua! Dongbo Shuang and Persei's team flew for more than a day before they gradually approached the center of the meteor bridge. They could also see the white meteorites on the other half of the bridge. Rustle, suddenly, a very low sound could be heard. It was the sound of flapping wings. Flying venomous scorpions began to fly out from the crevice of a huge black meteorite. These scorpions, excluding their slender tails, were all about half a meter long. Their entire bodies were pitch black, and their wings were translucent. The scorpion tails were curved, and the tips of their tails glowed with a dim light. Among them, there was a very conspicuous poisonous scorpion whose entire body was faintly glowing with purple light. Its body was slightly smaller, and according to the information, it was a deity-level flying venomous scorpion. The danger of the Crimson Rock Mountain was not insurmountable. These scorpions were only at the level of a newly ascended deity. Rustle, 4 purple-colored flying venomous scorpions and a group of ordinary flying venomous scorpions were flying in midair. Their protruding eyes were filled with ice-cold killing intent as they stared at Dongbo Shuaying's team. These creatures were said to have been bred by some powerful existences in the deity world. They were not born naturally, but were bred for slaughter. Their bodies were incomparably hard, their teeth were extremely sharp, and the poison in their tails was even more terrifying. Their flying speed was also extremely fast. Moreover, the stronger the flying venomous scorpion, the smaller its body would be. In the deity world, some of the apex flying venomous scorpions were completely purple in color. When millions of them attacked, even a peak deity-level deity would be instantly devoured. Dongbo Shuaying's team of 4 stopped as well. The other ordinary flying venomous scorpions should not have noticed me. However, the deity-level flying venomous scorpions are observing me. Dongbo Shuang transmitted his voice to Persei. Qinjiu didn't even have time to respond. The flying venomous scorpions had already started moving. Boom! An extremely low rumbling sound could be heard as the group of flying venomous scorpions instantly transformed into rays of light. It was as though a group of meteors had instantly streaked across the sky. Their speed was extremely fast. Especially the first 4 rays of light which were glowing with purple light, they were even more astonishingly fast. Star. Chapter 314. Let's go. Persei, Dongbu Shuang, an old thief, and Uncle Fu immediately rushed forward. Just as the two sides were about to clash, Hua demigods appeared out of thin air. Si Kong Yang, Mountain Lord He, Chiu Chi Bai, Great Elder Ao Lan, and the 3 priests of the demonic faction appeared one after another. 9 mirage avatars and 36 illusion avatars instantly appeared. At the same time, Shui Ying's group split up. A group of people flew to the left of the flying venomous scorpions, while another group flew to the right of the flying venomous scorpions. Persei and Uncle Fu led their 9 mirage avatars and 16 illusion avatars. Dongbu Shuang and an old thief led their 20 illusion avatars. According to their plan, Persei and Dongbu Shuang were confident in dealing with the flying venomous scorpions by relying on their own strength. An old thief was also confident in dealing with the illusion avatars. Only Uncle Fu. Therefore, Persei personally led Uncle Fu. Boom! Boom! This group of flying venomous scorpions was also very intelligent. They instantly split into 2 groups and attacked. Furthermore, they were all staring at Persei, Uncle Fu, Dongbu Shuang, and an old thief who appeared at the beginning. Ha ha ha, come, come. The old man with the goatee, an old thief, was very pleased. He wasn't afraid of ordinary flying venomous scorpions in a one-on-one battle. If he was besieged or encountered a deity-rank flying venomous scorpion that was suffused with purple light, he would instantly switch between his illusion avatars. There were also 20 illusion avatars around him for him to switch between. This group of flying venomous scorpions couldn't harm him at all. Dongbu Shuang also moved at high speed. Ordinary flying venomous scorpions couldn't enter the mirage at all. The 2 deity-rank flying venomous scorpions quickly locked onto him. These 2 deity-rank flying venomous scorpions actually flapped their wings and entered the mirage, causing Dongbu Shuang's expression to slightly change. He also knew that at the level of deities, things like time and the mirage were no longer so mysterious. However, after the 2 flying venomous scorpions entered the ethereal realm, it was as if they had sunk into a swamp. Their flying speed was significantly reduced. They could only fly at a speed of 600 to 700 miles per second, which was almost the same as Dongbu Shuang. Dong dong. Dongbu Shuang wielded his spear, not daring to engage in a prolonged battle. He quickly rushed to the other side of the meteor bridge and used his spear to block the attacks of the flying venomous scorpion. Fortunately, the flying venomous scorpion was relatively weak in terms of attack techniques. It relied more on its flexibility and the sneak attacks of its scorpion tail. Inside the mirage, its attack power was greatly reduced due to the suppression of the mirage. Dongbu Shuang had an easy time blocking the attack. In 2 seconds, Dongbu Shuang reached the second half of the meteor bridge in the virtual realm. The long bridge formed by the huge white meteors made Dongbu Shuang feel much better. This time, I feel much more relaxed than when I was on the floating island. An old thief also reached the white meteor and laughed. Dongbu Shuang, thank you. Fortunately, you attracted the attention of the 2 flying venomous scorpions. Otherwise, I would have been in even more trouble. The flying venomous scorpions attacked you, but they couldn't hit you. That's why they attacked me, Dongbu Shuang said. Sigh. Even if they couldn't hit me once, what about 10 or 100 times? Their speed is too fast, and their attacks are strange. My mirage doppelganger has to be within 100 meters. 100 meters? For the flying venomous scorpions, it's only a matter of seconds. If they happen to attack my mirage doppelganger, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to react in time, an old thief lamented. Relying on the mirage doppelganger's transformation was purely dodging. If one was unlucky and got hit, it would be over. For example, Dongbu Shuang and Persei were facing the flying venomous scorpions head-on. There was no luck involved. They are here as well. Dongbu Shuang looked to the other side. Uncle Fu's body was emitting golden light that illuminated the surroundings. Under the illumination of the golden light, countless runic patterns could be faintly seen on the ground. As for Persei, his eyes were filled with killing intent. His 8 arms became 10 meters long as he swept them in all directions. He was completely blocking the flying venomous scorpions head-on. The 2 flying venomous scorpions were completely blocked by him. The ordinary flying venomous scorpions were much less of a threat. Although some occasionally passed through his palms, Uncle Fu's strength was not weak. Just like that, he spent a few more seconds than Dongbu Shuang and the others before landing on the white meteor. The flying venomous scorpions that were chasing them also stopped. Ha ha ha, the 2 of you are really fast. The bald yellow-robed old man, Uncle Fu, laughed loudly. Persei, on the other hand, had a faint smile on his face. It was obvious that he was in a good mood. Don't be happy too early. The final obstacle at the end of the meteor bridge is the most difficult. Persei said, be it the stone sculpture guards of Floating Sky Island or the flying venomous scorpions, their attack laws and profound mysteries are very ordinary. But at the end of the meteor bridge, our opponents are extremely powerful when it comes to laws and profound mysteries. N. Dongbu Shuang nodded. The final obstacle. After passing through the meteor bridge, he should be able to detoxify himself. As long as he detoxified himself, he believed that with his current realm, he could immediately awaken his primordial bloodline a second time. His body would become tyrannical and he would enter the demigod realm. With the demigod battle chief powering his armor, his defense would be greatly improved. Moreover, without the voodoo poison, he would be able to wholeheartedly deduce his true intent. Currently, his 3 true intents were all at the peak of the second stage. However, he could not wholeheartedly deduce them. They were all naturally improved when he cultivated his spear arts. As long as he could deduce them wholeheartedly, he might be able to break through and reach the 3rd stage. As long as I detoxify myself, I might be able to make use of the uniqueness of Crimson Rock Mountain to cultivate. Dongbu Shuang already had a plan in mind. The interior of Crimson Rock Mountain was very large, and there were many special areas. Xia people had long been explored by many demigods. Everything has to be detoxified. Dongbu Ying's group safely passed through. The 3 groups behind them also began to separate. First was Meishan Master's group. Powerful. Dongbu Shuang, Persei, and the others watched from afar. Meishan Master led the white-robed girl and the black-robed man. The black-robed man's hands were covered with black claws. His hands seemed to contain endless darkness that could devour and annihilate everything. The white-robed girl held a sword in her hand. The sword light was dazzling as she blocked those flying venomous scorpions. The most powerful was still Meishan Master. The space around Meishan Master was distorted, causing the flying venomous scorpions' attacks to deviate. The closer they got, the more they felt like they were sinking into a swamp. Meishan Master's attacks, on the other hand, were incomparably exquisite. Every move of his was incomparably precise. The efficiency he displayed was almost comparable to Persei, who had 8 arms. The complete true meaning of space. The utilization of the surrounding space is too powerful, Persei said. His 2 companions are not bad either. They are quite strong. Meishan Master's group safely passed through again. All of them were alive. Congratulations, Dongbu Shuang and Persei said when Meishan Master's group arrived. Same to you. The Meishan clan master smiled faintly. Currently, both of their teams were still alive. Both groups continued to watch the later stages. But this time, Tianlan, you go first. The golden-clothed youth Ken Huang's sword light crisscrossed the surroundings. By himself, he was able to entangle 2 deity-ranked flying venomous scorpions. Even some ordinary flying venomous scorpions were blocked by him. Although that tall and muscular man was very strong, he was much weaker in terms of speed. Just 12 ordinary flying venomous scorpions were enough to stop him from passing through. The only person in their group who was able to use a deity-ranked scroll was the seductive woman from before. Ken Huang and this tall and muscular man, Tianlan, were both transcendent knights. Quick! Ken Huang grew anxious. Things might change if they delayed. Although a deity-ranked flying venomous scorpion was entangled by the sword light, it still swung out its tail. The tail was like a phantom. It was 7 to 8 meters long, and it directly pierced into the tall and muscular man's back. The tip of the scorpion's tail pierced through the armor, causing the poison to instantly erupt. The tall and muscular man's face immediately turned purple. The other ordinary flying venomous scorpions immediately surged forward and began to chew on him. The defense of the pierced armor was greatly reduced, and in the blink of an eye, the tall and muscular man was completely devoured. No. The golden-clothed youth Ken Huang seemed to have gone mad. By himself, he was crazily killing the flying venomous scorpions. But these flying venomous scorpions, even if they were ordinary, had indestructible bodies. They were simply unkillable. The golden-clothed youth Ken Huang could only come to the white meteorite in the end. Sigh. Dongbui Shuang and Meishan Master's group both sighed inwardly. This Ken Huang was truly pitiful. 2 of his companions had died one after another on the floating island and the meteorite bridge. Furthermore, the only transcendent mage, Shui Wei, had died under the siege of the stone sculpture guardians. If Shui Wei was still alive, she could have used a deity-ranked scroll. Then, as long as the tall and muscular man named Tianlan increased his speed, it would have been much easier for him to resist the flying venomous scorpions. Big brother, big brother. Ken Huang knelt on the ground of the enormous white meteorite. The meteorite was cold, but his heart was even colder. Shui Wei was his big sister. She was already a transcendent when he was captured by the temporal temple as a mortal. As for Tianlan, he had met him even earlier. They grew up step by step, and in the early days, Tianlan had protected him like a big brother. How can this be? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be like this. Ken Huang's body trembled slightly. His eyes were filled with terror. His eyes were red, and he was even somewhat hysterical. All of them had died. Even if he survived, what could he do? Meishan Master, who was watching from the side, sighed inwardly. Many of the temporal temple's reincarnators would easily go to extremes. It was precisely because they were pushed to the brink of death that he had encountered a similar situation. Back then, when his true love died, he was filled with grief and indignation, which was why he decided to leave the temporal temple and accept 3 hell-ranked missions. Meishan Master sighed and said, Ken Huang, the legendary almighty of the deity realm. He transcended time and space, transcended all the restrictions of the rules. He was omnipotent. Even if he died, he could revive from the river of time. Don't be discouraged. As long as you are alive, there is hope. Ken Huang's body trembled. His originally blood-red eyes gradually recovered. He said in a low voice, yes, as long as I am alive, there is hope. Chapter 3:15. The golden-robed youth, Ken Huang, looked at the Meishan Master. Thank you. There's nothing to thank me for. Most of the people in the temporal temple are pitiful people. The Meishan Master shook his head. They were forcefully captured and sent to experience countless life and death situations. Many of them had their minds twisted and turned into demons. Those who didn't turn into demons were mostly sick. But to the temporal temple, it doesn't care. It only wants to nurture experts. Just like how the deity world nurtures the insects. Persei added, one of them is to let the poisonous insects kill each other. By letting countless poisonous insects kill each other, the last survivor will be the strongest. The rest will all die. The temporal temple did the same. Sigh, I really envy brother Wu Huang. The golden-robed youth, Ken Huang, said, you broke free from its restraints. I also saw through it. My heart turned cold. I would rather die than accept 3 hell-ranked missions. The Maishan master said. Although the golden-robed youth, Ken Huang, had suffered a huge blow, he had endured the oppression of the temporal temple for a long time. He had already endured the pain and regained his fighting spirit. He wanted to continue walking on this path and walk further, so that he could revive his comrades who had gone through life and death with him. Dongbo Shuang watched from the side. He was still fine. Due to his high talent, the temporal temple couldn't force him. To be honest, he didn't like the temporal temple's forceful tactics. But the master behind the temporal temple was one of the strongest existences in the entire abyss and deity world. He was the strongest in the aspect of spacetime. He possessed absolute power. Perhaps there were many people in the deity world who didn't like the temporal temple. There were definitely many people like the Maishan master who had a huge grudge against the temporal temple. But what could they do? The temporal temple operated as usual. The mortals and transcendents from the billions of worlds, the deity world, and the abyss were still being forcefully captured. As they were chatting, the last team, which was the golden-armored youth, Wu Mahai's team, had charged through the winged venomous scorpions and arrived at the latter half of the meteor bridge. Amazing. This was the first time Dongbo Shuang had seen Wu Mahai in action from such a close distance. One word to describe it. Quick. When Wu Mahai battled, he transformed into a ray of golden light, moving at an astonishing speed. Among the captains that Dongbo Shuang had observed, Wu Mahai was definitely the fastest. He was definitely faster than the lords of Ulan, Maishan Master, Persei, and Ken Huang. His speed was so fast that even Dongbo Shuang was shocked. This was pure speed. In addition to his speed, he also had a destructive attack. His weapons were 2 blades. Each of his hands was holding a saber. The tall and skinny man, Ba Han, cultivated dark magic and was quite strong. With the 2 of them working together, they successfully passed without using a god-level scroll. Yet another one with an extremely strong attack. Dongbo Shuang looked at Wu Mahai and sighed inwardly. None of them were easy to deal with. All of them had grasped hold of 2 grade 2 true meanings, and their teamwork was quite good. He was praising others. What he did not know was that those few were similarly shocked by Dongbo Shuang. After all, during the battle, Dongbo Shuang had always been in the mirage. To fight against Dongbo Shuang. Once an attack passed through the mirage, its power would be greatly reduced. As for Dongbo Shuang's attacks, their power was not reduced at all. More importantly, Dongbo Shuang had grasped hold of a secret skill, and his potential was much greater than theirs. Their current threshold was the threshold from the peak of the stage 3 realm to the deity heart realm. This was the biggest threshold that many transcendents could not break even when they died. Condensing a deity heart and opening a deity sea were the 2 major thresholds for becoming a deity. For those with a grade 2 true meaning, as long as they condensed a grade 2 deity heart, they would be able to open a deity sea easily. Thus, the only threshold for them to become a deity was to reach the deity heart realm. However, this step was extremely difficult. It required them to integrate all of their previous comprehensions into a perfect whole. Dongbo Shuang was currently at the peak of the stage 2 realm. This was considered a small bottleneck. As long as he had some more comprehensions, he would be able to break through it with time. The 4 teams flew at high speed along the surface of the enormous white meteors. The largest of these white meteors had a diameter of several hundred kilometers, while the smaller ones were only a few kilometers in diameter. They were all connected to each other, leading to the end. At the end, they could see a towering sky-reaching vine. Its height was difficult to calculate, and it seemed to have pierced through the entire starry sky. Dongbo Shuang and his team flew at the very front. Time passed. Far away, Dongbo Shuang and his team had flown for several hours, but they were still flying. It's much bigger than the entire Xia people's world. Dongbo Shuang looked at the dark void beside him. The dark void beside the meteor bridge looked ordinary, but in reality, there were turbulent undercurrents. The might of the undercurrents was extremely great. The ancestors of the Xia people had tried to throw out some transcendent weapons, materials, etc. However, if they threw them too far, they would be smashed into powder by the undercurrents and turned into nothingness. According to the information provided by Persei, the undercurrents in the starry sky could even crush deity weapons. This was also why they had to travel along the meteor bridge. They had to pass through the sky-reaching vine. The final obstacle has arrived. Dongbo Shuang looked at the long bridge formed by countless white meteors. At the end of the bridge was the final obstacle, which was also the most difficult one. Swordsman. If he were to move alone, he would have to face a silver-armored swordsman. If the four of them moved together, they would be 4 swordsmen. One must know that they had to face a large number of stone sculpture guards on the floating island. Previously, they had to face a team of winged venomous scorpions alone. However, at the end of the meteor bridge, there was only 1 swordsman. Why? Because this silver-armored swordsman was really strong. It was a deity warrior comparable to a newly ascended deity. Moreover, it was said that it had grasped the profound mysteries of the laws of the divine moon heart. The divine moon heart was a 3rd-grade deity heart. It seemed to be at the same level as General Ku Meng, Nuan Nuan, Ba Han, and an old thief, but the opponent's foundation was too strong. This was a true deity warrior. Its pure strength and speed had already reached an astonishing level. Perhaps it was even above the lords of Ulan, Persei, and the Maishan master. Its body was indestructible, and coupled with this profound mysteries of the laws, it was not inferior to a true deity. One-on-one, fortunately, there was no need to defeat it. They only needed to think of a way to pass through the meteor bridge. Old thief, Uncle Fu, be careful. As long as we pass through here, we will be able to escape. As long as we pass through here, we'll pass through the sky-reaching vine. After you help me in the early stages, you can return. Persei said, your mission will be considered complete. However, be careful. This time, we will be facing 4 silver-armored swordsmen. Uncle Fu and an old thief nodded. Crimson Rock Mountain had 2 main tests. The first test, the floating island and the meteor bridge, was the most basic. For Persei, Dongbo Shuang, the lords of Ulan, and the Maishan master, it would be easier if they acted alone. Bringing companions would instead require them to take care of themselves. However, it was different in the second test. Uncle Fu could use a deity scroll to help his villa master, and an old thief could use the illusion doppelganger to help investigate. They were all assistants. After helping them in the early stages, they could return. Because the further they went, the higher the individual requirements would be, and they would not be able to continue following. Therefore, they were brought along in the first test in order to help on the sky-reaching vine. Brother Persei, I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to take care of the silver-armored swordsman. Dongbo Shuang said, I will use the illusion doppelganger to confuse them as much as possible. I'm afraid I can't do anything else. Understood. Persei smiled and nodded. The silver-armored swordsman, one-on-one, was very difficult. This was also why he was very worried about Uncle Fu and an old thief. Although an old thief had the illusion doppelganger, the silver-armored swordsman's saber light was too fast. The deity realm deity soldier's speed was already very fast, and the saber light displayed by the lunar deity heart was like a crescent moon, flashing and disappearing. Perhaps it wouldn't be difficult to kill 8 or 10 illusion doppelganger within 100 meters. Uncle Fu was even more dangerous. Persei could only think of relying on his 8-armed strength to help an old thief and Uncle Fu as much as possible. In the second half of the meteor bridge, they flew continuously for more than a day before finally reaching the end. At the end of the white meteor bridge stood 4 silver-armored swordsmen. The silver armor on their bodies was simple and unadorned, very similar to the color of the white meteor. Their faces looked as if they had been carved by a knife and chiseled by an axe, and each of them had a saber on their back. The 4 silver-armored swordsmen stood side by side, separated by 1 li from each other, coldly looking at Dongbu Shui Ying's group of 4. Moving alone, you guys have a better chance. Moving together, we'll cooperate, said one of the silver-armored swordsmen. Persei, Dongbu Shuiying, and the others didn't utter a word. If they moved alone, the 2 of them would be very relaxed, but Uncle Fu and an old thief would be in danger. If they moved together, Persei could at least protect his companions, and Dongbu Shuiying wouldn't be distracted. Although he might be able to make a move if it was within his ability, he definitely had to protect himself first. Who? Dongbu Shuiying's group of 4 instantly turned into streams of light and rushed up. At the same time, a group of illusion doppelganger and mirage doppelganger appeared. At the same time, Dongbu Shuiying also disappeared into the mirage. Mirage? Leave this to me. One of the silver-armored swordsmen's body flashed. As a deity rank, deity world soldier, his body was special, and he easily entered the mirage. His attacks were extremely exquisite, and according to Dongbu Shuiying's judgment, the 8 dragons' true intent should be a variant of the true intent of life and death. After all, the laws of heaven and earth contained countless profundities, and these countless profundities ultimately combined to form the complete laws of heaven and earth. Therefore, in theory, any profound mystery could be fused. As a result, it was entirely possible for some relatively unique and unknown true meanings to appear. However, it was usually possible to find similar ones. The 8 dragons' true intent was similar to the true intent of life and death. Although each move contained many deathly killing moves, it also contained endless vitality. As a result, all his moves were perfect. His 8 arms were like the perfect cycle of life and death. The other 3 silver-armored swordsmen also made a simple exchange and immediately determined that although they had the advantage in strength and speed, Persei was stronger in the profound mysteries of the laws, and he also had 8 arms. Even if the 3 of them attacked together, they would only be able to suppress this demigod, and it would be difficult for them to obtain victory. As a result, they immediately turned to deal with Uncle Fu and an old thief. Don't even think about leaving. Persei was incomparably dauntless, rapidly approaching an old thief and Uncle Fu. At the same time, his 8 arms tangled with the silver-armored guards. The silver-armored swordsman wanted to kill Uncle Fu and an old thief, and Persei was on the side. Naturally, they had to fight. The 2 sides fought at close quarters. The silver-armored swordsmen were weakened in the mirage, but their strength wasn't reduced in the real world. Every time they exchanged blows, Persei's arms were shaken to the point of retreating. For a moment, he could only do his best to tangle with 2 silver-armored guards. There was still one that charged towards Uncle Fu. Whoosh! A layer of black light circulated on the surface of Uncle Fu's body, and he held a shield in his hand. Block! He used the shield to block the silver-armored swordsman's attack. Under the impact, Uncle Fu borrowed the force to fly even faster towards the other side of the meteor bridge. Want to leave? The silver-armored swordsman sneered as he caught up with extreme speed. The sword in his hand brandished again. Although Uncle Fu tried his best to block with the shield, the silver-armored swordsman's sword technique was strange and unpredictable, and it was also fast. Very quickly, 3 blades landed on his body. The protective black light on the surface of his body began to tremble. After 3 blades, the protective black light completely collapsed. Old Baldy. The old man with the goatee, an old thief, transformed into an illusion doppelganger and deliberately confused the silver-armored swordsman. But it was useless. The silver-armored swordsman was staring at Uncle Fu. It didn't care about him at all. Peng! The demigod rank shield in Uncle Fu's hand was directly sent flying by the strike. Both of his hands were somewhat numb. It couldn't be helped. Before, his body had been hit 3 times, but the shield had withstood more than 10 attacks. The power of each attack was stronger than that of Persei and the Lords of Ulan. Fortunately, the power of Uncle Fu's true meaning was strong enough, so he could borrow the shield to continuously block many attacks. But in the end, he still couldn't withstand it. Whoosh! Another blade chopped down. Uncle Fu revealed a look of despair. It was too fast. He didn't even have time to use a god rank scroll. A god rank scroll needed to be taken out, torn, and guided with mana. Under the lightning-fast blade light of the silver-armored swordsman, the previous blade had sent his shield flying, and the next blade followed. How could he make it in time? I'm going to die like this. No, the god rank scroll is still on me. Uncle Fu was anxious. He was the only transcendent mage in the team of 3. Uncle Fu. Persei anxiously rushed over, but he still didn't make it in time. Not good. Dongbui Shuang, who was in the mirage, also didn't make it in time. After all, the battle was too fast. At this time, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Uncle Fu. It was the old man with the goatee. Only he could instantly switch with the help of the illusion doppelganger and save Uncle Fu in time. Ha! The old man with the goatee, an old thief, held a dagger in his hand and blocked the blade like lightning. Pang! He blocked it. The crescent moon-like curved blade chopped down on the dagger, but the terrifying power contained in the curved blade exploded. It directly pressed down on the dagger and continued to chop down on the old man with the goatee. Although he was wearing a demigod robe, the terrifying power contained in this blade still passed through the robe and struck the old man with the goatee. His whole body was thrown back, and his eyes were wide open. This time, it was the real body that came to block it. It was impossible for the illusion doppelganger to block it. Persei, who had quickly rushed over, immediately waved his arm. His arm angrily swatted at the silver-armored swordsman. The silver-armored swordsman blocked it with his blade, but he staggered backward. At this time, Uncle Fu, carrying an old thief, immediately fled toward the other end of the meteor bridge. In this short instant, he had already escaped. Let's go. Persei also immediately fled. At the other end of the meteor bridge, they stepped onto the muddy ground. Dongbui Shuang was the first to arrive, followed by Uncle Fu, who was carrying an old thief. An old thief. Uncle Fu, carrying an old thief, was incomparably anxious. An old thief, how are you? Persei hurriedly rushed over. The old man with the goatee grinned. Helping the manor master. Just as he said these words, his whole body completely disintegrated, turning into nothingness. Under that terrifying attack, an old thief's body couldn't withstand it at all. The particle level was completely destroyed. Only his powerful soul forcibly maintained his body, but as soon as he opened his mouth, he collapsed and was annihilated. Why are you so stupid? The eyes of the bald old man, Uncle Fu, were filled with tears. You clearly knew that you couldn't block it, yet you still came to block it. An old thief, an old thief. An old thief had grasped the true meaning of illusions. This true meaning caused an old thief's own power to not be strong, and he didn't have an advantage in terms of power. Just like how the mirage was weak in terms of attack power, although illusions were slightly better, they were still weak. An old thief's attack power was comparable to the top 3 of the Xia people's demigod list. It was just that his original body's illusions were ever-changing, extremely strong in terms of survival, and extremely strong in assassination. I know that an old thief thinks that I'm a transcendent mage and that I'm more useful to the manor master. Uncle Fu shed tears. In the Flying Sword Manor, he and an old thief were like brothers. Persei's eyes were also slightly red. Uncle Fu was his elder, and an old thief was also his elder. he didn't expect to die here. Damn it, if his strength was a bit stronger, it would be great if he could tie down 3 silver armored swordsmen. The teams behind also came one by one. The Mysian Master's team was separated. The black-clothed man used a god-level scroll to move alone and successfully passed. The Mysian Master also successfully passed with the white-robed girl. Everyone in their team was still alive. The golden-clothed youth, Ken Huang, was alone, so he naturally passed. The last team, Wu Ma Hai, and his companion, the tall and thin man, Ba Han, also died under the silver-armored swordsman. In the end, Wu Ma Hai wasn't 8 arms, and he wasn't good at long-range attacks, so he could only deal with 1 silver-armored swordsman. And although Ba Han's strength was quite strong, when he was almost at the bridge, he was still killed in 1 slash. 4 teams. The Mysian Master's team was intact. Dongbo Shuaying and Persei's team lost 1 person. The teams of Wu Ma Hai and the golden-clothed youth, Ken Huang, were both the only ones left. They're all here. The atmosphere was clearly more oppressive. The Mysian Master, the only one in good condition, opened his mouth and said, "Everyone understands that entering Crimson Rock Mountain is a gamble of life and death. Now that we've already passed the meteor bridge, in front, is the foot of the sky-reaching vine. There, we should be able to obtain some things we need." Chapter 3:17. The muddy ground gave off a muddy smell, and there were weeds and wildflowers growing around it. This group of 8 people from the deity world, the temporal temple, and the mortal world were walking towards the towering sky-reaching vine. Among the 8 of them, the one who was the most nervous was Dongbo Shuang. This was because the goals of the other 7 people were very clear. They all had to walk up the entire sky-reaching vine, pass through all the dangers, and successfully enter the next layer of space. Only then would they be able to obtain the treasures desired by the world deity-level existences behind them. As long as I can successfully detoxify the poison, I'll be able to fully focus on deducing the 3 true meanings to the stage 3 realm as soon as possible. My strength in all aspects will increase by leaps and bounds, and I'll probably be slightly stronger than the Mysian Master and the others. Dongbo Shuaying's heart was filled with anticipation. At that time, with my strength, I'll definitely be qualified to obtain many treasures in Crimson Rock Mountain. The treasures I obtain will definitely be much more than Ancestor Black Wind. Why was Patriarch Black Wind unwilling back then? Why did he want to go in again? It was because he had been forced to leave Crimson Rock Mountain when danger descended upon him. His strength was much stronger than Black Wind ancestors, especially after he had detoxified the poison. He would definitely be able to obtain a lot more. It might even be more powerful than the entire Xia people. Dongbo Shuaying's heart was filled with nervousness. Although the sky-reaching vine was towering, it could be seen from afar. However, it still took them more than an hour to reach the bottom of the sky-reaching vine. At the bottom of the sky-reaching vine, countless twisted roots protruded out of the soil like huge snakes. Most of the roots were deeply rooted in the soil. This floating continent is millions of miles in diameter, and it's almost completely permeated by the roots of the sky-reaching vine. Persei said from the side. And this is under the control of the deity realm's almighty beings. Otherwise, the sky-reaching vine's roots would be able to reach a much larger area. I understand. Isn't it said that most of the world deities are no match for it? Dongbo Shuang said. The 8 of them finally stopped. They all looked ahead, waiting. Dongbo Shuang tried his best to suppress his emotions. Suddenly, on the main branch of the sky-reaching vine that was tens of thousands of miles thick, a figure gradually appeared. She was peerlessly beautiful, with green hair, green skin, and clothes made of green leaves. He exuded a gentle aura. This green-haired lady was barefooted. Other than her green skin, her appearance was even more beautiful than any living creature that Dongbo Shuang had ever seen. Furthermore, this green-haired woman had a very special aura. It was an extremely transcendent and mysterious aura. It was as if he was in a mysterious world. Young transcendence. The green-haired woman slowly descended barefoot to the ground. She smiled and said, "My name is Shi Wei. Congratulations on being able to stand in front of me. According to the Holy Master's orders, all transcendents who can come before me will have a chance to receive a gift from him. Tell me, what do you want? Weapons, treasures, secret techniques, or cultivation caves? As long as you want something, you can ask for it. We will try our best to satisfy you." Senior Shi Wei. The golden-armored youth, Wu Ma Hai, bowed respectfully. "I wish to watch creation of heaven and earth." They did not dare to be impudent. This senior Shi Wei was in fact an incarnation of the sky-reaching vine. This sky-reaching vine was a world deity life form, and it was said that it was extremely powerful even amongst world deities. Ordinary world deities would not be able to withstand its attacks, and might even lose their lives. How could these little transcendents dare to be impudent? If they offended a senior, they would be killed immediately. It would be too late for regrets. Watch creation of heaven and earth. Senior Shi Wei laughed. This brat really knows how to choose. Go. Wang. A ripple enveloped Wu Ma Hai, and Wu Ma Hai disappeared. What about you guys? Senior Shi Wei looked at the others. Senior Shi Wei, I also wish to watch creation of heaven and earth. The white-robed girl said respectfully. Creation of heaven and earth. I also wish to watch creation of heaven and earth. Creation of heaven and earth, all of them quickly made their choice. Without any hesitation, they all chose to watch creation of heaven and earth. Dongbo Shuang watched from the side as they made their choice. The Xia people had collected a lot of information over the years, and many of the otherworldly visitors had even traded with the Xia people. The Xia people's information included an introduction to creation of heaven and earth. Legend had it that the powerful existences of the deity world could transcend all laws, possessing unfathomable abilities. For example, one could not say their true name, but the moment it was said, they would be able to sense it. They could even instantly kill those who were separated by a great distance. The ability to resurrect the dead was well known. Every single powerful existence, even the temporal temple, which could be said to be a top-notch deity weapon, could not protect a reincarnator in front of a powerful existence. Powerful existences could similarly split the heavens and earth and open up a brand new world. When the heavens and earth were split, the countless laws and profound mysteries of a brand new world would gradually form. This was an extremely good opportunity to comprehend it. Of course, to personally watch a powerful existence of the deity world create a new world was extremely difficult. In the Crimson Rock Mountain, the person who requested to watch it was an imprint left behind by the original owner of the Crimson Rock Mountain. As long as one used their mental energy to sense it, they would be able to watch the scene of creation of heaven and earth. Although it was not as good as watching it with one's own eyes, it was still a rare opportunity. In the deity world or the dark abyss, it was extremely rare for one to experience such an imprint. This was because only powerful existences could painstakingly leave an imprint behind, and it was impossible for them to sell it publicly. Thus, it was very rare for transcendents to have a chance to watch it. Little fellow, you're the only one left. The green-haired woman, Senior Shi Wei, looked at Dongbo Shuang. At this moment, the other 7 had already been teleported away to watch the creation of heaven and earth. Dongbo Shuang took a deep breath and said, Senior Shi Wei, I want an antidote, to cure the 6 ghosts' resentment hexing poison in my body. Cure. The green-haired woman, Senior Shi Wei, lightly shook her head. The 6 ghosts' resentment hexing poison is a hexing poison that only a peak-stage deity poison master can concoct. The fact that you passed the floating island's meteor bridge was only the simplest of tests. Although the sacred ancestor will give you a gift, there is a limit to the value of this gift. They are only demigod-rank treasures, but the antidote is already more valuable than the gift I can give you. No, Although I was afflicted with the 6 ghosts' resentment hexing poison, it was only a stab from the sorcerer god's saber, so its toxicity is much weaker. It isn't the original hexing poison, Dongbo Shuang said hurriedly. He was very clear about the value of the gift. If it was the original 6 ghosts' resentment hexing poison, he definitely wouldn't be able to cure it. But the one he had was a weakened version. Thus, Dongbo Shuang had always held on to hope. Little fellow, I can see through the hexing poison with a single glance, the green-haired woman, Shi Wei, said. There's no need for you to explain. Although it isn't the original hexing poison, the antidote for it still exceeds the value of the gift. I have no choice. Chapter 318. It doesn't have to be an antidote, as long as it can be detoxified. Any method is fine, Dongbo Shuang said anxiously. Even suppressing the poison is fine. Suppressing the poison? Aren't you taking the 100 bitter restoration antidote? This is already the most suitable method. The green-haired Shi Wei shook her head. Could it be that your Crimson Rock Mountain can't even detoxify a weakened version of the 6 ghosts' resentment? Dongbo Shuang was really anxious. He knew. After passing the simplest and most basic test, there was a limit to the value of the gifts given to the Transcendents. But things like watching, creation of the heavens and earth or cultivation abode were actually very valuable. It was very difficult to exchange 10 or even 100 deity artifacts for such an opportunity. However, creation of the heavens and earth was something that Crimson Rock Mountain already had. Watching it once wouldn't be a loss to Crimson Rock Mountain. The cultivation abode was also something that Crimson Rock Mountain already had. Allowing transcendents to enter and cultivate there wouldn't be any loss to the cultivation abode. Therefore, Crimson Rock Mountain was willing. Dongbo Shuang felt that Crimson Rock Mountain should be able to detoxify the weakened version of the 6 ghosts' resentment. After all, this place represented a powerful existence of the deity realm. Apart from the antidote, there are naturally other methods to detoxify the poison, Shi Wei said. The green-haired woman, Senior Shi Wei, said, however, those methods far exceed the value of the antidote. Dongbo Shuang didn't know what to say. Is there really no other way? Dongbo Shuang asked again. No. Hearing this answer, Dongbo Shuang went silent. In fact, he had mentally prepared himself for this. Previously, when he told Persei and the others about obtaining treasures through the meteor bridge, he only said that he hoped to obtain the antidote. It was only a hope. He didn't have absolute confidence, but he had always felt that Crimson Rock Mountain was incomparably mysterious and powerful, and that a small amount of 6 ghosts' resentment should be able to detoxify it. But reality proved him wrong. This was a terrifying peak deity level poison. Even if it was weakened, detoxifying it wasn't that easy. It seems that I have to follow another plan, Dongbo Shuang thought to himself. Why did he want to move with the other teams? He was worried that he wouldn't be able to detoxify the poison after crossing the meteor bridge. He had many plans. The first plan. The easiest way was to pass the basic test and successfully detoxify the poison under the sky-reaching vine. After that, Dongbo Shuang would first cultivate and try to break through to the 3rd stage realm as soon as possible. After that, he would go on an adventure on the first leaf of the sky-reaching vine, thinking of ways to obtain various treasures. Thus, it could withstand several attacks from the stone sculpture guards, flying venomous scorpions, and silver-armored swordsmen. It was better to be attacked than to be stopped. However, if one was stopped and trapped, one would definitely die. One had to rely on speed. Rush over at the fastest speed. The floating sky island was relatively better. The stone sculpture guards only moved at a speed of 50 kilometers per second. If one were to attempt it alone, the number of stone sculpture guards would not be too ridiculous. If one were to attempt it alone, with luck, one would be able to make it through. As for the flying venomous scorpions, the 10 ordinary flying venomous scorpions had weak attacking techniques. Only the god-ranked flying venomous scorpions were more difficult to deal with. The silver-armored swordsman was the most difficult. The silver-armored swordsman's saber technique realm was very high. Once one was entangled by him and the flying boat slowed down, one would definitely die. Chao Qing had condensed the thunder god's deity heart. The flying boat he brought was one of the demigod-ranked flying boats that Dongbu Shuang had plundered from the demonic faction's headquarters. The runes on the flying boat were lightning type. Actually, the arrays on these fast-flying boats were generally lightning type, wind type runes that could increase one's speed. Chao Qing had grasped the thunder god's deity heart and was most proficient in lightning type runes. It could be said that in terms of speed, not counting Dongbu Shuang, he was the fastest person in Xia people. He could reach 250 kilometers per second. After all, lightning-type runes were good at speed. With the help of the flying boat, he could reach a speed of 250 kilometers per second. He was even faster than Uncle Fu and an old thief. Relying on speed and risking his life, Chao Qing luckily passed. Later on, Chao Qing chose the cultivation paradise from Senior Shi Wei. After that, there was no more news of him. Now, he had already passed the limit of 3,000 years. Of course, choosing to take the flying boat was purely a matter of luck. Generally, era suppressors wouldn't do this. For example, taking the flying boat, one wouldn't be able to attack outside the boat. Once one was blocked and trapped, such as being completely surrounded by a group of stone statue guards, coming out to fight at that time was practically suicide. Xia people of the past demigods, if they were lucky enough to succeed, they would usually go to the first vine leaf to obtain some treasures. Dongbu Shuang shook his head. I originally wanted to do that, but unfortunately, I can't. I need to use the first and second vine leaves. The 5 vine leaves of the sky-reaching vine were even larger than the stars, especially the first 2 giant vine leaves. There were countless fortuitous encounters. Perhaps the Almighty of the realm of the gods wanted to use this opportunity to attract some demigods to the sky-reaching vine and use the fortuitous encounters to unearth the potential of some demigods. I hope to break through to the 3rd stage on the first vine leaf. Dongbu Shuang thought to himself. If it doesn't work, then I'll find a place where time flows faster on the second vine leaf. I'd rather be separated from Persei and stay behind to cultivate. I must reach the 3rd stage before I can advance. The second vine leaf. There were places where time flowed slower, and places where time flowed faster. If he found a place where time flowed faster, a month would be a day in the outside world. Dongbu Shuang wanted to use this kind of environment to cultivate for 10 or 20 years. After all, he had been poisoned by the 6 ghosts' resentment. In theory, he could last for 200 years, but he had only lived for 100 years. As for maintaining his combat strength, he estimated that he could last for another 50 years. Therefore, he would rather cultivate for 10 or 20 years on the second vine leaf to increase his strength. Once he stepped into the 3rd stage of extreme piercing, mirage, and star. There would be a metamorphosis in his strength. As for reaching the peak of the 3rd stage, there wasn't enough time. Reaching the 3rd stage was enough. His strength surpassed that of Persei and Meishan Master. Moreover, at the 3rd stage of the true meaning of mirage, he would be able to switch between his body and mirage avatars like an old thief. At that time, his ability to protect himself would greatly increase. He would also have the confidence to pass through the sky-reaching vine. Dongbu Shuang stood there, thinking rapidly. The green-haired woman, Senior Shi Wei, shook her head slightly. Little guy, I can't cure you of the poison, but you still have to choose a gift. Why don't you watch Genesis Splitter once? In the God realm, this is very rare. Alternatively, you can choose the Cultivation Paradise. It's a very good place for the guardian disciples of Crimson Rock Mountain to cultivate. It's very beneficial for cultivation. In the god realm, people like Persei and Wu Ma Hai had generally received good cultivation environments. Meishan Master, Ken Huang, and the others had also exchanged for good cultivation environments in the temporal temple. Only the demigods of the Xia people. Few of them chose Genesis Splitter. Most of them chose the cultivation paradise. After all, the demigods of the Xia people lived in the mortal world and had never truly cultivated in a good cultivation environment. For them, it was very helpful. I saw that your talent was quite high, so you entered Crimson Rock Mountain. You should be a transcendent of the Xia people's world, right? To be able to create a secret skill, I'm afraid that in the God realm and the abyss, you would have been cured long ago. The green-haired woman, Shi Wei, said, "It's not bad for you to go to the cultivation paradise. It's still too early for you to completely lose control of your voodoo poison. You can definitely enter the cultivation paradise to cultivate for 50 years. Didn't the Xia people have a transcendent who was nearing the end of his lifespan come in 100 years ago? He chose the cultivation paradise and was very lucky to successfully open the deity sea and become a divine spirit." Dongbo Shuang was completely stunned, his mind blank. Therefore, even if all the ancestors of the Xia people, including peak deity-level experts like the Purple Thunder Emperor and the Cloud Sea Emperor, were to donate all their wealth, it would not be enough. Alright, combined with the above, does everyone understand now? It was impossible to obtain the antidote for the 6 ghosts' resentment after passing the basic test. Even if the poison was weakened, it still exceeded the value of the gift. Chapter 320. Is he called Chao Qing? Dongbo Shuang quickly regained his senses and asked anxiously. I don't know about that. The green-haired Shi Wei was shocked. Why? Don't you know that he became a deity? If I'm not wrong, you and him are both from the Xia people. Yes. Dongbo Shuang nodded. Following which, Dongbo Shuang waved his hand and heaven and earth energy gathered in front of him, forming an image of Chao Qing. Is it him? Dongbo Shuang asked again. Amen, the green-haired Shi Wei nodded. Dongbo Shuang's heart was filled with boundless joy. Chao Qing opened his deity sea and became a deity. That's great, that's really great. Dongbo Shuang was incomparably excited. Even if he successfully cured himself of the poison, he wouldn't be this happy. Senior Chao Qing has become a deity. We, the Xia people, now have a deity. Even if the sorcerer god and the great demon god start a war, we, the Xia people, will finally have the power to resist. Chao Qing didn't die. This was worth celebrating. But becoming a deity was even more worth celebrating. A deity, and one with a grade 4 deity heart. In terms of strength, he might not even be comparable to Dongbo Shuang, Persei, or the lords of Ulan. At most, he would only be close to them. But deities had their own special significance. For example, they could control the Dingjiu battleship. With Senior Chao Qing here, there would be an endless supply of god energy to activate the Dingjiu battleship. Even if the arrays on the battleship were too complicated to fully comprehend, with god energy, the power of the battleship would naturally be different. Dongbo Shuang was excited. Senior Shi Wei. Dongbo Shuang asked again, did he leave? Or is he still in Crimson Rock Mountain? He left long ago. The green-haired woman, Shi Wei, said, originally, he could have trained in the cultivation paradise for 1,000 years. However, as soon as he became a deity, he left the cultivation paradise without staying for long. Furthermore, with his current strength, he would not be able to participate in the deity-level trial. Naturally, after leaving Crimson Rock Mountain, he should have returned to the Xia people. Red Rock Mountain. In fact, other than the demigod-level test, there was also the god-level test. Of course, it had to be a real god. Something like the God avatar that was suppressed to the demigod limit power couldn't be considered a true god, nor could it be considered a demigod. He left Crimson Rock Mountain and returned to the Xia people. Dongbu Shuang was puzzled. When did he become a god? Why are you asking so many questions? Do you have a grudge against him? The green-haired woman, Shi Wei, frowned. She also felt that something was off. Chao Qing had clearly become a god. Could it be that this Xia people brat didn't know? She didn't elaborate further. Dongbu Shuang pondered. Senior Chao Qing's lifespan was limited to 3,000 years. He must have ascended to godhood before his lifespan came to an end. In other words, he should have returned to the Xia people tens of years ago. But I've never heard of him returning. When we faced the Lords of Ulan's provocations, Senior Chao Qing didn't appear either. Dongbu Shuang pondered. But he clearly went out again. Senior Chao Qing has a god's domain. It's impossible for him to die quietly in the Xia people's world. If he released a bit of his godly power, he would have shaken the entire Xia people's world. Then this can only mean one thing. He's deliberately hiding. Dongbu Shuaying's eyes lit up, revealing a look of joy. Yes. He was hiding. Amongst the Xia people's demigods, there are probably traitors of the demonic faction. In order to hide, Senior Chao Qing didn't tell any transcendents, not even Palace Lord Chen. Dongbu Shuang nodded his head. Although Palace Lord Chen is absolutely loyal, his every word and action might be spied on by the traitors in the dark. Only by not telling anyone can it be kept a secret. If it's made public, the sorcerer god and the great demon god will know immediately. They will understand that attacking the Xia people will be very difficult. I'm afraid they would rather wait for 7,000 years and wait for Senior Chao Qing to enter the deity world before attacking. Dongbu Shuang understood this point. Even if they don't delay and attack forcefully. I'm afraid that after knowing of Senior Chao Qing's existence, they will be prepared. When it came to the Xia people, the sorcerer god and the great demon god paid the most attention to Dongbu Shuang. Chao Qing, on the other hand, was hiding in the dark. Only a hidden killing move would be powerful enough. Hiding in the dark, the initiative is in our hands. Dongbu Shuang was secretly delighted. Senior Chao Qing really can endure. That time when the Lords of Ulan and the rest provoked them, Senior Chao Qing actually endured and did not make a move. Compared to the sorcerer god and the great demon god, the Lords of Ulan and the rest are just a small problem. Senior Shi Wei. Dongbu Shuaying's smile was brilliant. I choose to observe the creation of heaven and earth. At this time, Dongbu Shuaying was incomparably relaxed. Previously, he had been under a lot of pressure, worrying about the survival of the entire Xia people. Now that the pressure had lessened, his mood was incomparably good. All right. The green-haired Shi Wei nodded and waved her hand. A spatial ripple enveloped him, and Dongbu Shuang was instantly teleported away. The world of the Xia people. Beside the pure white beach, a wooden boat was drifting. On the wooden boat, an old man dressed in tattered clothes was currently fishing. He seemed to be fishing calmly, but in reality, his god's domain was carefully sensing the world around him. The entire mortal world, he could sense any battle that was slightly larger in scale. In terms of sensing ability, as a deity who grasped the god's domain, he was currently the strongest in the mortal world. Of course, the moment a deity's avatar descended, it would be a different story. A deity's avatar was a mighty existence of the world deity level. Although its power was suppressed to the limit of a demigod by the entire mortal world, it could only be ranked in the top 3 of the demigod rankings. It couldn't even compare to era suppressors like General Ku Meng or Nuan Nuan. However, the laws of profound mysteries were too profound. Although its power was weak, it could still kill a newly ascended deity. Deities at the level of the Lords of Ulan and Dongbu Shuang were similarly killed in front of a deity's avatar. The main reason was that the disparity in the laws of profound mysteries was too great. Fortunately, that brat Snow Eagle was powerful enough to block that demigod from the dark abyss called the Lords of Ulan at the crucial moment. The old man continued fishing. Otherwise, if the Lords of Ulan really wanted to slaughter the entire Xia people, I'm afraid I would have to expose myself. Back then, when the Lords of Ulan destroyed the array of black-white deity mountain and killed Feng Dong, the commotion wasn't too exaggerated. However, Chao Qing also sensed it and quickly headed over. He arrived slightly earlier than Dongbu Shuang. Watching from afar, he couldn't help but want to show himself. After all, he couldn't just watch as the countless humans of the Xia people's world were slaughtered. Fortunately, Dongbu Shuang had resolved everything, which made him feel quite gratified. The little guy he had watched grow up was now no weaker than him, who had become a deity. All the teams have gone to Crimson Rock Mountain, including Snow Eagle. I hope that Snow Eagle can cure himself of the voodoo poison and soar to the skies. Although becoming a deity will pose a threat to the sorcerer god and the great demon god, it won't be fatal. If Snow Eagle can become a deity, they'll definitely lose. Chao Qing silently looked forward to Dongbu Shuang soaring to the skies in Crimson Rock Mountain. Within Crimson Rock Mountain, in a secret area. Outside the canyon. Dongbu Shuang, Uncle Fu, Persei, Meishan Master, and the others were all waiting outside the canyon. Dongbu Shuang, you're here as well. Persei said in surprise. You've also chosen to create heaven and earth? Why are all of you standing here? Dongbu Shuang asked curiously. We can't go in, Uncle Fu said. We have to take turns to watch the creation of heaven and earth. Wu Ma Hai is currently inside. Once he's done, we'll go in one by one. Dongbu Shuang nodded in understanding. Chapter 321. Persei reacted immediately and asked in a low voice, Dongbu Shuang, did you get poisoned by the hex poison? Passing the most basic test of the floating island, the meteor bridge, would result in a gift, but only a gift. Dongbu Shuang had actually chosen the creation of heaven and earth. What about the antidote? I can't. Dongbu Shuang shook his head. Senior Shi Wei said that the Six Ghosts' resentment is a peak stage deity poison. The antidote is too valuable, far surpassing the value of a gift. But this isn't a primitive hex poison. Persei asked. Even if it's a weakened version, the antidote's value far surpasses the value of a gift. Dongbu Shuang shook his head. By the side, the Meishan Master, the golden-robed youth Ken Huang, the white-robed girl, and the others all looked at Dongbu Shuang. Although they felt some sympathy, they didn't say anything. Hex poison, AI, it's truly terrifying. Persei sighed. His beloved had died from the hex poison, and even his flying sword manor had no way of saving her. Moreover, the Six Ghosts' resentment is a peak-stage deity poison. If it was a primitive hex poison, even a peak-stage deity expert would be tormented by it. To seek help, one would have to pay a price far surpassing the value of a top-grade deity weapon. Deity weapons were divided into deity, world deity, and even higher. Weapons like the sorcerer god's saber and senior snow were considered top-grade deity weapons. Demigods were incapable of activating ordinary top-grade deity weapons. They could only activate low-grade deity weapons. As for the sorcerer god's saber and senior snow, they both had one thing in common: they were blood-refined deity weapons. The ones that grew alongside their master were all from low-grade deity weapons to top-grade deity weapons. Due to the limitations of the weapon's material, the deity rank was their limit. Because they were blood-refined deity weapons, they could be controlled by demigods. However, the requirement for the soul was extremely high. One needed to be very close to the original owner's soul in order to activate it. Thus, deities that specialize in hex poisons are extremely terrifying in the deity world. Persei said, however, I didn't expect that the sorcerer god's sword's weaker voodoo poison could not be cured even in Crimson Rock Mountain. After all, it's a peak-level divine level witch poison. The Maishan master spoke up from the side. Haven't you all noticed that the gifts given by Crimson Rock Mountain are actually quite cheap? They aren't even willing to give a single divine artifact. They were all demigod-grade treasures. The extremely valuable, watching the creation of heaven and earth, and the cultivation grotto heaven, won't cause them any loss. Everyone present nodded. Yes, the real treasures given weren't very valuable. The creation of heaven and earth? I'm just taking a look. Cultivation paradise. Cultivating there wouldn't affect the grotto heaven at all. Yes, it's the creation of heaven and earth, and the cultivation paradise that attract people. Persei shook his head and smiled. He had to make sure that the demigods were attractive enough. Otherwise, there would be very few who would risk their lives. Back in the deity realm, Crimson Rock Mountain attracted countless demigods. Even deities went. Of course, the deities who went were all peak stage deities. Uncle Fu added from the side. The demigods who came were all peak stage demigods. Naturally, the deities who took the trials were all peak stage deities. You can't blame Crimson Rock Mountain for being stingy. Dongbo Shuang said, countless demigods and even deities went to challenge it. If they paid too many gifts, Crimson Rock Mountain wouldn't be able to hold on for too long. Naturally, they had to control the value of the gifts. Only the creation of heaven and earth, and the cultivation paradise, that don't require much of a price can they be more generous. Everyone present nodded. One demigod would be given a divine artifact. The deity realm was so vast, over the course of 100 million years, how many demigods had passed the basic trials? How many divine artifacts did they have to give? That was a terrifying number. The value of the gifts had to be strictly controlled. Dongbo Shuang, I didn't expect that even without an antidote, he would be so open-minded, said the golden-robed youth, Ken Huang. Admirable, admirable. Dongbo Shuang smiled but didn't explain. Previously, he had been somewhat anxious and unresigned. However, the matter of Senior Chao Qing becoming a deity had greatly improved his mood and made him feel much more relaxed. Thus, he was able to accept it. One should always look forward and not always rely on luck. Wu Ma Hai was watching the creation of heaven and earth from within the gorge. An hour later, it was the white-robed girl's turn to enter. Everyone took turns to enter, they were in no rush. Each person was given an hour. Dongbo Shuang was the last to arrive, and so he was at the end of the line. Hua! The gorge, which had been enveloped by an invisible force, suddenly split apart. At this moment, Dongbo Shuang was the only one left outside the gorge. He strode into the gorge. The gorge was silent. It didn't take long. Dongbo Shuang saw a black-robed elder standing in the distance. Young Transcendent. The black-robed elder looked at Dongbo Shuang as he said coldly, "It hasn't been too long since you watched the creation of heaven and earth. Usually, after watching the creation of heaven and earth, you would fall into a state of enlightenment. However, an hour later, I will still teleport you back to Shiwei's side. You must understand this." "Yes, Senior." Dongbo Shuang bowed respectfully. "This is the creation of heaven and earth imprint." The black-robed elder pointed to a cliff by the side of the gorge. Dongbo Shuang turned his head to take a look. There was an invisible force blocking the cliff. But soon after, the invisible force dissipated, revealing a huge crater on the cliff. This crater even had fingerprints. With a single glance, Dongbo Shuang was able to determine that this should be the work of a gigantic finger on the cliff. There's no need to think too much. Just use your mental energy to sense it. The black-robed elder said. Yes. Dongbo Shuang sat down cross-legged. After which, his soul energy permeated the area, seeping into the crater. The instant his soul energy touched the crater, Hong. Dongbo Shuang saw it. It was a vast and silent void of darkness. Within the void stood a red-haired, red-robed elder. This elder's entire body was like a ball of incomparably dazzling flames. His hair, eyebrows, beard, and even his eyes were fiery red. Just by standing there, the formless pressure he exuded caused the void of darkness to tremble. Even though Dongbu Shuang was able to see through the imprint, he still felt fear and respect from the bottom of his heart. This red-haired, red-robed elder stretched out his right index finger and pointed towards the void of darkness. His index finger seemed to expand rapidly, filling up one's vision. At the same time, it seemed to be extremely small, penetrating into the deepest part of the void of darkness. Extremity. Dongbu Shuang instantly understood. From this finger, he could sense the extremity. The tip of that finger was like an extremity. It represented the end of all things, and also the extreme point of the beginning of all things. Hung, with a single point of his finger, the void split apart. Boundless primordial energy of heaven and earth surged, and a world began to gradually expand and take shape. Time and space began to appear in this world. There was also a trace of mysterious undulation that permeated the entire world. Of course, there was also the most dazzling fiery light that enveloped the entire world. The world began to take shape. This was a huge blazing world. Plants began to grow, and strange insects and beasts began to be born. Although it was a completely different world from the world of the Xia people, there were still many things in that world. Hua. Everything ended. Once again, a formless energy appeared on the cliff, blocking Dongbu Shuang's view of the world. Dongbu Shuang sat cross-legged within the canyon. He was completely engrossed in the many fundamental laws of profound mysteries of this world, especially the extreme piercing that he was quite familiar with. That red-haired, red-robed elder had used a single finger to split the heavens and earth. For a moment, countless thoughts appeared in Dongbu Shuang's mind. He couldn't help but wave his finger in front of him. Sometimes, his finger would pierce out like a spear, and sometimes, he would slap out with his palm. The black-robed elder by the side watched on expressionlessly. He had long gotten used to this. In the deity world, it was unknown how many transcendents and even deities would be engrossed in watching this. In any case, no matter how engrossed they were, once an hour was up, even if he would disturb them, he would still forcefully teleport them away. Chapter 322. Within the canyon. Dongbu Shuang sat cross-legged in front of the cliff. Beside him, the black-robed old man stood there like a withered tree. As time passed, Dongbu Shuang could not help but frown. Damn it! The pain gradually intensified. Before entering the canyon to observe the creation of heaven and earth, Dongbu Shuang had immediately consumed the antidote. However, at this point, Dongbu Shuang had to consume the antidote every 2 hours even when he was outside. And in Crimson Rock Mountain, in order not to affect his battle, he had to consume the antidote every hour. However, comprehension and battle were two different things. Comprehension required one to be completely immersed in it. As the pain intensified, it still affected Dongbu Shuang. However, Dongbu Shuang was not willing to stop. The creation of heaven and earth was simply too shocking. He had countless ideas in his head, and he wanted to test them out before the light dissipated. This is too mystical. The laws of heaven and earth are actually so vast. What I've comprehended in the past is merely a drop in the ocean. Dongbu Shuang was filled with excitement. In the past, he had never had a master, and he had comprehended everything by himself. However, during the creation of heaven and earth, when a brand new world was formed, all sorts of laws and profound mysteries were manifested. Only then did Dongbu Shuang truly experience the countless laws. Extreme piercing can actually be executed in such a manner. However, compared to the true extreme piercing, it is still far from it. My true intent of star is still too shallow. The mirage is ultimately the mirage. Only a true world is perfect. Dongbo Shuang no longer felt arrogant. He could feel that the gap between them was as wide as the heavens and earth. With a single tap of his finger, he was able to open up a new world. If he had such strength, he would probably be able to destroy a mortal world with a flip of his hand. What would the sorcerer god and the great demon god be capable of? Time's up. A cold voice rang out. Wang. A ripple forcefully enveloped Dongbo Shuang, and like a chick, he was forcefully thrown out of this space. The scene before Dongbo Shuang's eyes blurred. The feeling of forceful teleportation made his body feel uncomfortable and his mind was spinning. Senior Shi Wei was so gentle when she teleported, but this black-robed old man is so rough. Dongbo, Persei called out. Dongbo Shuang also discovered that he had returned to the bottom of the sky-reaching vine. Beside him were Persei, Uncle Fu, Wu Ma Hai, Maishan Master, the golden-robed youth Ken Huang, the black-robed man, and the black-robed girl. Brother Persei. Dongbo Shuang smiled. Ha! Being forcefully thrown out must be quite uncomfortable, right? Persei laughed and teased, I'm also very uncomfortable. After being thrown out, I've forgotten most of my original ideas. However, I've gained quite a lot. How do you feel? Astounding, Dongbo Shuang said. That's right, the creation of heaven and earth. This is something that only powerful existences can do. Persei nodded. It would be great if I could see it a few more times. Once. The more times you see it, the weaker the effect will be, Dongbo Shuang said. We're planning to cultivate here for 3 days. After that, we'll start walking up the sky-reaching vine. Persei smiled. It seems like you'll have to come with us. Of course, Dongbo Shuang said. Following which, Dongbo Shuang and the rest of the group of 8 began to cultivate at the foot of the sky-reaching vine. They tried their best to digest the insights they gained earlier, hoping to achieve a breakthrough. Before cultivating, Senior Shi Wei also gave each of them a talisman. Boom! Beneath the sky-reaching vine, within the mirage world. After Dongbo Shuang drank the antidote, he started practicing his spear arts. He wasn't willing to let others see him cultivating. The other 7 sat cross-legged and meditated. However, the effect of Dongbo Shuang's comprehension was weaker. He still had to test his spear arts repeatedly. Boom! 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 Dongbo Shuang's spear was so fast that it left behind countless afterimages. Every time he struck, there would be a black dot at the tip of the spear. His spear arts were much faster than when he first entered the Crimson Rock Mountain. Awesome, awesome. Things are really different after reaching the stage 3 realm. Dongbo Shuang revealed an expression of joy. His extreme piercing had broken through to the stage 3 realm. Buzz! Swish! His spear was like a swimming dragon. Occasionally, countless spear shadows bloomed like snowflakes, and occasionally, it was like a divine dragon swinging its tail. Unknowingly, 3 days had passed. I'm still lacking some feeling. Dongbo Shuang felt slightly regretful. After practicing his spear arts for 3 days straight, he had only broken through his extreme piercing. His star and mirage were still lacking. The stage 3 realm isn't a big hurdle. I've already broken through my extreme piercing, but my star and mirage are still lacking. Dongbo Shuang wasn't in a hurry. Let's go. Dongbo Shuang and the other 7 followed the incomparably thick trunk of the sky-reaching vine and flew upwards rapidly. The trunk of the sky-reaching vine was so thick that the naked eye couldn't see the end of it clearly. There were even countless vines coiling around the trunk. Dongbo Shuang and the rest were flying close to the trunk. The further away they were from the trunk, the stronger the undercurrent in the dark starry sky was. This time, they flew for an even longer time. They flew for a total of 9 days. Knowing that there wouldn't be any danger along the way, Dongbo Shuang controlled himself to drink the antidote every 2 hours. The first vine leaf. Ying and the others continued flying upwards, only to feel an unseen obstruction. It was as if there was a layer of barrier blocking them. They looked down at the side. There was an incomparably huge vine leaf growing out of the trunk of the sky-reaching vine. Previously, the countless vines had some very small vine leaves, but they were all very ordinary. But this incomparably large vine leaf was too exaggerated. From afar, the surface area of this vine leaf was probably even larger than the Xia people's world. This sky-reaching vine was truly worthy of being a world deity. Young Transcendents. The green-haired Shi Wei appeared on the trunk beside them. Senior Shi Wei. Dongbo Shuang and the rest bowed respectfully. 5 vine leaves. This is the test set by the sacred master for the transcendents. Shi Wei said, the earlier ones were too simple. This is the true test. If you pass all of them, you will become an honorary disciple of the sacred master. You will also receive many privileges as an honorary disciple. The 8 of them, including Dongbo Shuang, were all filled with anticipation. After becoming an honorary disciple, one would be able to obtain some treasures. Among them, there were some that were extremely attractive to world deities. Persei, Wu Ma Hai, and the lords of Ulan were all sent down for the sake of these treasures. As for the antidote, since they had already become honorary disciples, the antidote should be a small matter. All of you should know the method to pass through the first vine leaf. The green-haired Shi Wei pointed at the center of the incomparably huge vine leaf. At the very center, there is a long vine. This long vine is directly connected to the main trunk of the sky-reaching vine. As long as you reach that long vine, you will have succeeded. Then, you will be able to follow the long vine to the second vine leaf. However, the entire first vine leaf contains countless fortuitous encounters, as well as dangers. Before reaching the long vine, you must be careful. The green-haired Shi Wei smiled after finishing, I wish you all good luck. I hope that I will be able to see all of you on the second vine leaf. Shi Wei's figure then merged into the main trunk of the sky-reaching vine. We will make a move first. The Maishan master said. Hua. The Maishan master brought the white-robed girl and the black-robed man down, flying towards the huge vine leaf. AI. The golden-robed youth, Ken Huang, was about to say something, but the Maishan master and the rest had already set off. He then looked at Persei's group. Brother Persei, shall we go together? Wu Ma Hai also turned his head to look at Persei and the rest, squeezing out a smile. Persei, Dongbo Shuang, let's go together. Chapter 323. The golden-robed youth Ken Huang and Wu Ma Hai both looked towards Persei's team. Our team has enough people, Persei said. I have God-grade scrolls, I'll give them all to you. Wu Ma Hai squeezed out a smile and tried his best to persuade, don't worry, later on, I'll definitely scout ahead and fight at the forefront. Ken Huang also looked towards Persei and Dongbo Shuang, I'm also willing to give Brother Persei the God-grade scrolls. Dongbo Shuang watched from the side, it was better to let Persei decide. God-grade scrolls? Yes, they were very useful. But Ken Huang and Wu Ma Hai were both transcendent knights, they couldn't use scrolls. Even if they took it, it would be useless. In Ken Huang's team, the bewitching woman Shui Wei was a transcendent mage, and in Wu Ma Hai's team, the tall and skinny man Ba Han, could also use God-grade scrolls. Unfortunately, they were both dead. Our team has God-grade scrolls, and you should understand that the more people there are in the team, the more dangerous it will be. Sorry, there's no other way, let's go, Persei said. Persei, Dongbo Shuang, and Uncle Fu all dove down. Humph, Wu Ma Hai looked down, his eyes filled with anger. It's normal not to bring us along. Wu Ma Hai, why don't we work together? This first vine leaf world is strange and unpredictable, and danger can appear at any time. If the two of us work together, we'll be able to resist the danger, the golden-robed youth Kenhuang said. But if the two of us work together, the danger will be greater. The possibility of death is higher. Wu Ma Hai snorted coldly, let's just leave it to fate. Xiao. Wu Ma Hai also dove down. The golden-robed youth Kenhuang stood alone in midair next to the sky-reaching vine, lightly shaking his head. This was really bad. It was too dangerous to stay in the first vine leaf world without the use of God-grade scrolls. I'll definitely succeed. I definitely will. The golden-robed youth, Kenhuang, murmured to himself as he dove down as well. Dongbo Shuang, Persei, and Uncle Fu landed at the edge of the first vine leaf world. Dongbo Shuang heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Wu Ma Hai and Kenhuang separated from each other. Brother Persei, the first and second vine leaf worlds are going to be troublesome, Dongbo Shuang said. We will also need Brother Dongbo Shuiying's mirage doppelganger to help us investigate, Persei added. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Crimson Rock Mountain was filled with layers upon layers of danger, and the further it went, the more individual the danger became. Just like the world of the 5 leaves of the sky-reaching vine. The first vine leaf world, the second vine leaf world. At least they could move together. From the third vine leaf world onwards, it was a test of individual strength. They could no longer fight together. Of course, because he could move together with Persei and the others, Dongbo Shuang would have a much easier time in the first 2 vine leaf worlds. Regarding the first vine leaf world, Dongbo, your Xia people's information is more detailed. Persei looked into the distance. On this enormous vine leaf world, there were undulating mountain ranges and even some flat roads. There was also wilderness, and in the distance, there were even strange metal buildings. The demigods of my Xia people did not dare to hope to pass through the entire sky-reaching vine. Thus, they came to this first vine leaf world in search of fortuitous encounters. Dongbo Shuang laughed. Try to get as many treasures as possible. If there's any danger, immediately crush the talisman and give up. Because we've always been searching for fortuitous encounters, the records of this world are especially detailed. This time, we can't take any risks, Persei said. The 3 of us will move together, and the dangers we'll encounter will be very strong. Try not to provoke them. Understood. Dongbo Shuang nodded. According to the original plan, if the poison was cured at Senior Shiwei's place, then Dongbo Shuang would stay in the first vine leaf world for as long as possible. He would search for areas and try to get as many treasures as possible. He could get a dozen deity warriors, or even deity weapons, etc. All of these were possible. But now was not the time to play around. Try to avoid trouble. Because the greater the fortuitous encounter, the greater the danger. Look at that pagoda. Persei pointed into the distance. Dongbo Shuang and Uncle Fu looked over. With a glance, they could faintly see a silver-gray pyramid in the weeds in the distance. Level 7 Star Pagoda. Uncle Fu exclaimed. Villa Master. This is a star pagoda, a level 7 star pagoda. Envious? Persei shook his head. I'm envious too. It's more than our flying sword villa's accumulated wealth over countless years. We can even sell it and buy 1 or 2 peak stage deity slaves. But in this first vine leaf world, there's a rule. The greater the fortuitous encounter, the greater the danger. Dongbo Shuang was speechless. By peak stage deity slaves. There are slaves in the deity realm. Deities as slaves. Dongbo Shuang couldn't help but ask. Deity realm? Persei looked at Dongbo Shuang and sighed. The deity realm is much more strict and cruel than you think. Dongbo Shuang fell into deep thought. I heard that when Crimson Rock Mountain was in the deity realm, the first vine leaf world didn't have so many treasures. Persei said. After that powerful existence died, Crimson Rock Mountain fell into the mortal world. Instead, it put many precious treasures in the first vine leaf world. It's probably to attract more and stronger demigods. Although Dongbua Shuang was also envious, the Xia people's intelligence had long recorded that the more dazzling and powerful a treasure was, the more one shouldn't touch it. Ancestor Black Wind was lucky enough to get his hands on some deity realm warriors. Prepare to depart, Persei said. Uncle Fu, cast the spell. Yes. The bald old man Uncle Fu took out a gray deity rank scroll and gently crushed it. Wang. The deity rank scroll immediately shattered, and 2 gray streams of air entered Uncle Fu's eyes. His eyes also carried a deep gray color, as though he could see through everything. Spatial eyes, Persei said. With this spell, we'll be much safer. The spatial eyes was a deity rank scroll specially prepared for the first vine leaf world. For example, the Meishan master, Wu Ma Hai, and Ken Huang all brought it with them. However, Wu Ma Hai and Ken Huang couldn't use deity rank scrolls, so they could only pitifully risk their lives. Although the Meishan master had grasped the complete true meaning of space, unless he condensed the deity heart of space, his perception of space couldn't compare to the spatial eyes. This was a deity rank spatial spell that was painstakingly refined, and it focused on scouting. Dongbua, I'll have to trouble your Mirage avatar to scout ahead, Persei said. No problem. Dongbua Shuang nodded. Previously, Persei's team configuration was very good. An old thief was in charge of scouting for danger. Uncle Fu was in charge of using deity rank scrolls. With the 2 of them, Persei could easily pass through the first 2 vine leaf worlds. As for the last 3, Uncle Fu and the others had to stop at the 3rd vine leaf world and separate from Persei. Dongbua Shuang had been in this team before they arrived, so he had some merit. Persei couldn't refuse. Secondly, his Mirage avatar could also help scout for danger. As for Wu Ma Hai and the golden-clothed youth Ken Huang, they could only pray for their own good. Let's go. Dongbua Shuaying's 9 Mirage avatars were scattered thousands of kilometers in front, behind, left, and right. Persei, Uncle Fu, and Dongbua Shuaying's main body also began to advance towards the center of the first vine leaf world. At the very center, dozens of kilometers away from that vine, beside a hill, there were a few rocks. Among the rocks, there seemed to be nothing. Even if they tried to scout, they wouldn't be able to find anything. Because the space here had overlapped, apart from the normal space, there was also a hidden space. Inside the overlapped hidden space, a dark-skinned youth wrapped in white cloth was sitting cross-legged. He was the Lords of Ulan, who had entered Crimson Rock Mountain a month earlier than Dongbua Shuaying's group. As a demon of the Dark Abyss, he could naturally use deity rank scrolls with deity rank scrolls. Moreover, he was alone, so it was relatively easy for him to reach the vine. Dong, a faint fluctuation came from afar. Battle? The dark-skinned youth immediately opened his eyes, revealing a pair of faintly glowing golden eyes. He grinned, revealing his pure white teeth. Are you here? Are you finally here? Dongbua Shuang, you killed Nua Nuan and Ku Meng. Without them to scout for me, you caused me to be poisoned by the voodoo poison and suffer from constant pain. How could I let you go? The dark-skinned youth's eyes were filled with killing intent. Having climbed up from the bottom of the dark abyss, he was a vengeful person. Although he had been poisoned by the voodoo poison, the toxicity was weaker than Dongbua Shuaying's, and the concentration was also much lower. After all, he had only been stabbed once. After adapting for so long, he could already fight without being affected. I came a month earlier, and painstakingly gathered some treasures. Dongbua Shuaying, I've been waiting for you. When you reach the end, it will also be the time of your death. The dark-skinned youth coldly snorted, then closed his eyes and silently waited. Chapter 324. The sky was always dark, and there were always stars in the night sky. Of course, these were all arranged by the master of Crimson Rock Mountain. Under the night sky. Within the huge vine leaf world, Dongbu Shuang and the other two were currently at the foot of a barren mountain. They had a bonfire lit and were roasting meat. From time to time, they would cut off a piece of meat to eat and drink delicious fruit wine. Occasionally, they would intentionally raise their heads to look at the dazzling stars in the night sky. Comfortable. Dongbu Shuang revealed a smile. It's been 6 days, I can finally relax. It's all thanks to brother Dongbu Shuang. If not for you and Manor Master, I would have died in these 6 days. The golden-robed bald old man, Uncle Fu, chuckled. AI, everyone has their own responsibilities. If not for Uncle Fu's ability to detect enemies from afar, we wouldn't have had it so easy. Dongbu Shuang said. Persei also nodded. In these 6 days, we've suffered a total of 15 attacks. Other than the 6 sudden attacks, the other 9 were from afar. According to the intelligence, we're currently at the center of the vine leaf world. There shouldn't be any more dangers along the way. There's still about 300,000 kilometers left. After we finish eating and drinking, we'll fly over in one go. Emin, Dongbu Shuang and the golden-robed bald old man nodded. According to the intelligence provided by the world deity-level existences. After passing through the first vine leaf world, excluding the dangers that accompanied the fortuitous encounter, they would suffer 15 attacks. After enduring all 15 attacks, there would be no more attacks. Dongbu Shuang was inwardly rejoicing. Fortunately, they had Uncle Fu's space eyes, which could detect enemies from afar and allow them to be prepared. They could even rely on speed to defeat the enemies. Even if they suddenly rushed out from some hidden space, Uncle Fu would still be able to detect them. If not for Uncle Fu, those enemies would most likely sneak right in front of them and directly surround and assassinate them. That would be a nightmare. Let's go. Persei stood up. Kakik. Dongbu Shuang, on the other hand, finished the bone in his hand in 2 mouthfuls. With a flip of his hand, he took out a flask of wine and drank a mouthful of the antidote. Dongbu, do you feel anything after being tortured by the voodoo poison and eating meat and drinking wine? Persei couldn't help but ask with a smile. Of course I feel it. If you don't believe me, you can give it a try. Dongbu Shuang teased. I don't want to try. I can't forget the way the lords of Ulan howled, Persei said. The 3 of them quickly flew under the night sky. As they flew, they chatted along the way. It was very relaxing. This was because he knew that there was no danger other than fortuitous encounters. Naturally, it was very easy. As for fortuitous encounters, Dongbu Shuaying's Mirage Avatar was scouting ahead of them. The 3 of them followed the path that the Mirage Avatar had taken before, so they were naturally very safe. As he flew, he got closer and closer to the central long vine. The first vine leaf world is still relatively easy. Dongbu Shuang thought. Although there were some problems, he and Persei could work together to solve them easily. Just when Dongbu Shuang was in a good mood, suddenly, Wang. As Dongbu Shuaying's group of 3 flew, they suddenly collided with a spatial ripple. Following that, the 3 of them disappeared. What happened? The expressions of Dongbu Shuaying, Persei, and Uncle Fu changed greatly. They were clearly flying, and their speed wasn't fast. Otherwise, they wouldn't have taken 6 days to travel 6 million kilometers. Why did they suddenly appear here? This is... Dongbu Shuang observed carefully. This was a huge sealed cabin. The sealed cabin was 1,000 meters long, 300 meters wide, and 300 meters tall. The sealed cabin was completely empty. There was only a statue in the corner and a chest at its feet. It was a statue of a fat warrior holding a mace, and the chest was made of black metal. This shouldn't be the case. This path was clearly taken by the Mirage Avatar. If the Mirage Avatar didn't enter, how did we enter? Uncle Fu was puzzled. Fortuitous encounter. Persei frowned. We met with a fortuitous encounter. This is troublesome. Dongbu Shuang also frowned. Uncle Fu's expression changed slightly. We tried to avoid fortuitous encounters along the way, but we still entered. The demigods of the Xia people desperately wanted to find fortuitous encounters, but Dongbu Shuang, Persei, and the others tried their best to avoid them. This was because no one knew if the fortuitous encounter was big or small, but they were afraid that it would be a big one. This was because the big danger brought about by a big fortuitous encounter might be something they couldn't resist, causing them to lose their lives. Fortuitous encounters, other than those that appear publicly, there are some that are hidden. Some are not only hidden, but also constantly moving. Persei said helplessly. Our luck was too good, so we met one. Be careful, danger can descend at any time. Yes. Dongbu Shuang nodded. Persei, Dongbu Shuang, and Uncle Fu all looked at the corner of the sealed cabin, at the fat warrior statue and the black metal chest at its feet. There was nothing else here. Only the statue and the chest. The statue and the chest were very likely the spoils of war from a fortuitous encounter. They weren't afraid of ordinary spoils of war, but they were afraid of spoils of war that were too precious. It looks ordinary, but if I'm not wrong, that statue is a deity warrior, Persei said. The deity warriors in the first vine leaf world are almost all demigod rank. Dongbu Shuang nodded. Demigod rank deity warriors were considered relatively ordinary. Usually, they had the strength of the top 10 demigods. Being in the top 3 was already very powerful. Deity warriors were expensive. The most ordinary ones were at the level of the lords of Ulan. Therefore, a deity warrior was worth more than 100 demigod warriors. The danger it represented was also much higher. However, Dongbu Shuang didn't need it, because deity warriors were unable to enter the world of the Xia people. It's just a deity warrior. Dongbu Shuang relaxed slightly. This was a very simple fortuitous encounter. Even Ancestor Black Wind had gotten his hands on the 5 shadows and several other deity warriors. Something's not right. Dongbu Shuang's pupils shrank. Maybe there's something else in the chest, Persei said. Suddenly, he noticed the change in Dongbu Shuang's expression. Dongbu Shuang immediately transmitted, "Look at the armor of the deity warrior." Persei immediately looked carefully. He even used the formless law domain of the true meaning of 8 dragons to examine it. His expression immediately changed. The armor worn by the fat warrior statue, as well as the mace in its hands, were all deity weapons. Deity weapon? Persei and Dongbu Shuang exchanged glances. They were both extremely nervous. Ordinary deity weapons were indeed more valuable than demigod warriors, but there was a limit to the difference. However, the value of armor and mace was completely different. A defensive armor-type deity weapon was usually equivalent to 10 attack-type deity weapons. This was based on the fact that they were all deity low-grade deity weapons. There's even a defensive deity weapon. This is going to be troublesome. Persei frowned as he transmitted, "Dongbu, send your Mirage doppelganger to take a look at what's inside the chest. Once the chest is touched, that deity warrior might be alerted. I'm afraid that danger will descend upon us." Dongbu Shuang said. Persei also made his preparations. Dongbu Shuang nodded. With a thought, a Mirage doppelganger appeared out of thin air. This doppelganger looked exactly like Dongbu Shuang. It appeared beside the fat warrior statue and reached for the chest with lightning speed, intending to open it. Scram! The eyes of the fat warrior statue suddenly brightened. He waved the mace in his hands. Since he was right beside the chest, his actions were naturally fast. The mace directly hit the Mirage doppelganger's body. Boom! The Mirage doppelganger was much weaker. It only had the strength of an experienced demigod. It was immediately sent flying, and a huge hole appeared in its chest. This deity warrior is not much of a threat. Dongbua Shuang transmitted. The fat warrior statue was only a demigod, and was probably ranked in the top 5 demigods. As for deity weapons, the deity warrior could not activate deity weapons. Deity weapons were just for show. Be careful. Dongbua Shui Ying's expression changed. What's wrong? Persei and Uncle Fu were puzzled. They tried their best to investigate, but they could not find anything. Hua! A dark green tentacle as thick as an arm appeared out of thin air. The tentacle swung and lashed at Persei like a whip. The power was so great that the tentacles lashed out, causing the entire enclosed space in the cabin to tremble continuously. Chapter 325. Persei's eyes were filled with ruthlessness as he punched with his right hand. A black dragon could be faintly seen roaring. The power of Persei's punch was completely restrained, and there was not a single ripple in this enclosed cabin. Pang! The moment his fist collided with the huge, dark green tentacle, the power immediately exploded. A sinister power instantly spread along the tentacle and into the entire body of the unknown creature hidden in the void. Be careful, it's a mirage creature with 8 tentacles. Dongbua Shuang immediately transmitted a message. At the same time, his figure flashed and entered the mirage. Rumble, it seemed that the mirage creature was angry that it did not gain the upper hand in a direct confrontation and even felt pain. In an instant, dark green tentacles danced out of the void. In an instant, 5 long tentacles enveloped Persei at the same time. Persei's expression was slightly ferocious as 8 arms suddenly appeared on his body. Pang! Boom! F***ck. In terms of close combat techniques, he was probably ranked first among the people who entered Crimson Rock Mountain this time. The true meaning of 8 dragons contained all sorts of complicated combat techniques. Some were fierce, some were sinister, and some were strange. Moreover, they all contained the concept of life and death and indestructible. Coupled with the true meaning of only me with 8 arms, his close combat strength was terrifying. Back when he was crossing the Meteor Bridge, even 3 silver-armored swordsmen couldn't do anything to him. Ha! While blocking the tentacles head-on, 2 of Persei's hands grabbed one of the tentacles and suddenly pulled it out. Come out! Persei's true meaning of only me surged with power, surpassing all the transcendence in Crimson Rock Mountain this time. Pa! That tentacle was actually broken, and the other tentacles were quickly retracted. That broken tentacle fell on the floor of the enclosed cabin, twisting and struggling as it rapidly tunneled into the mirage. Mirage creature. Persei frowned and transmitted a message, Dongbua, it seems like I'll have to rely on you. Leave it to me. Dongbua Shui Ying's voice echoed in the cabin. Inside the ethereal extent the white-robed Shuang licked his lips. There was still some bitterness in his mouth. This was the antidote to the 100 bitter restoration. He held onto a fiery red spear as he looked at the octopus-like creature in front of him. One of its broken tentacles had returned to the mirage and was reconnected. It floated in the ethereal extent, its 8 tentacles stretching casually, covering an area of 20 to 30 meters. Its blood-red eyes were staring at Dongbua Shuang. This is the first time I've encountered a mirage creature since entering Crimson Rock Mountain, Dongbua Shuang thought to himself. Although he had previously met some creatures that could enter the mirage, such as the stone sculpture guardians and the deity-level flying venomous scorpions, they were not true mirage life forms. Inside the ethereal extent, they were greatly hindered. Their speed and power were all affected. Moreover, each of their moves in the ethereal extent would create strong energy fluctuations. Even in the outside world, he could sense them. But the mirage creatures were different. Inside the ethereal extent, they were free, unhindered, and silent. Just like the transcendent who had mastered the true meaning of mirage. True meaning of mirage. The octopus-like creature looked at Dongbu Shuang and growled, "Transcendent, your true meaning of mirage is so weak. You can't even merge with the ethereal extent. You haven't reached it either, have you?" Dongbu Shuang held the spear in his hand. "I relied on my innate talent, unlike you. Your true meaning of mirage is so weak. I'm afraid your strength is far from that 8-armed transcendent outside," the octopus-like creature said in a low voice. After fighting with Persei for a short while, it was already wary of Persei. That 8-armed transcendent was really strong in close combat. It would be hard for the octopus-like creature to win. But since it was inside the ethereal extent, that 8-armed transcendent could not do anything to it. This was the scary thing about the mirage creatures. They could easily ambush their enemies. However, it was hard for their enemies to find them. But this time, Dongbu Shuang was in the team. That 8-armed transcendent outside is very powerful. As for my strength, you will know once you try, Dongbu Shuang said. Who? The octopus-like creature instantly waved its tentacles. 8 tentacles immediately enveloped Shuang, each of them filled with a majestic aura. It can clash head-on with Persei. In terms of strength, this octopus-like creature has definitely reached the deity level. However, it seems like its laws of profound mysteries are slightly weaker. Dongbu Shuaying's figure moved. Xiao. This movement shocked the octopus-like creature. So fast. His extreme piercing had reached the stage 3 realm. Dongbu Shuaying's movement speed had also soared to the standard of 500 km per second. In close combat, his movements were naturally much faster. Hong. The spear spun and drew an arc in the air. It was as if a huge star had suddenly expanded and exploded with a dazzling light. Following that, it rapidly shrank into a single point. The octopus-like mirage creature tried to block it. However, Dongbu Shuaying's spear contained a whirlpool-like gravitational force and an extremely fast speed. Its tentacles could not block it in time. Thus, Dongbu Shuaying's spear pierced its ugly head. Its head instantly caved in and disappeared. However, its 8 tentacles quickly retreated, and its head grew out once again. Such a strong life force, Dongbu Shuang muttered to himself. My spear art was able to kill General Ku Meng with a single strike. This octopus-like mirage creature was actually able to withstand it. And, this secret skill of mine has yet to be perfected. Once it is perfected, it will probably be much better. His extreme piercing had just reached the stage 3 realm. His true meaning of star was still at the peak of the stage 2 realm. The secret skill, Star Meteor Annihilation, formed from 2 different true meanings, naturally had to be modified. The difference in strength between the two made it slightly troublesome to combine them. Shuang needed to spend more time perfecting this secret skill. However, no matter what, the secret skill's strength was still 30 to 40% stronger than before he entered Crimson Rock Mountain. The octopus-like mirage creature was also startled by this spear. Following which, it charged forward even more violently. This time, its 8 tentacles coordinated even more perfectly, trying its best not to leave any openings. Xiao! 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 Dongbu Shuang transformed into countless afterimages. Although the octopus-like mirage creature's tentacles were fast, they were still within Dongbu Shuaying's range of endurance. The spear struck again and again. After the octopus-like mirage creature was pierced 5 times, it finally howled and tried to escape. Trying to escape. Dongbu Shuang chased after it and continued to use killer moves. The octopus-like mirage creature's body collapsed and was annihilated again and again. After a total of 12 spear strikes, it finally turned into nothingness. Persei and Uncle Fu were waiting anxiously. They could also faintly feel the undulations within the mirage world. Clearly, the battle was quite intense. But following that, the white-clothed Dongbu Shuang walked out of the mirage world and revealed a smile. It's settled. Ha! Persei and Uncle Fu immediately revealed expressions of joy. Fortunately, we have brother Dongbu. Otherwise, that mirage creature would be very difficult to deal with. Its strength and speed have both reached the deity level. Moreover, it is hidden within the mirage world. It can suddenly ambush us at close range, and when we attack the mirage world, its power will be greatly reduced. Persei sighed. The mirage assassination was very troublesome because its attacks were all at close range, and it had 8 tentacles. Dongbu Shuang nodded. Brother Persei's close combat skills can be said to be perfect. If it was someone else, it would be very difficult to survive the sneak attack of this mirage creature. It was originally dangerous. However, Dongbu Shuang had grasped the true meaning of mirage, causing the mirage creature, which was originally used for sneak attacks, to fight head-on with Dongbu Shuang. Let's take a look at the spoils of war first, Uncle Fu said. Dongbu Shuang, Persei, and Uncle Fu all looked at the fat warrior. The fat warrior was currently tied up by a chain, and the other end of the chain was in Persei's hand. Being tied up, the fat warrior couldn't break free no matter how much he struggled. With his meager strength, he had no way of resisting in front of Persei. Dongbu Ying's thoughts moved. A mirage doppelganger appeared and directly walked towards the black metal chest, wanting to open it. Persei and Uncle Fu's expressions suddenly changed. What's wrong? Dongbu Shuang looked at them. Wu Ma Hai is dead, Persei said in a low voice. Just now. Chapter 326. What? Dongbu Shuang was shocked. Wu Ma Hai. The leader of the Temple of the Earth Gods team. He died in the first Vine Leaf world. Dongbu Shuang was in disbelief. Yes. Uncle Fu added, he and we both had Qi doppelgangers and Mana doppelgangers in the Xia people's world. Just now, his Qi doppelganger dissipated in front of us. He was very unwilling before he died. Persei nodded. He had just seen the callous golden-armored youth, Wu Ma Hai, with his malevolent and crazed expression before his death. It made Qin Jiu feel a sense of sympathy for the death of a rabbit. Wu Ma Hai had died in the first Vine Leaf world. What about him? What about him, Persei? Could he really survive the test of the 5 Vine Leaf worlds and become a protector disciple of Crimson Rock Mountain? Sigh. Dongbu Shuang shook his head lightly. Although Wu Ma Hai was cold and had wanted to ask for 5 deity-grade scrolls from the Xia people, Dongbu Shuang did not hate him. After all, it was just a deal. He did not agree to it. However, he did not expect their team to be annihilated so quickly. He and Ken Huang are unable to use deity-grade scrolls. The first Vine Leaf world is very dangerous. I heard Ken Huang say that he has already fought 35 times. Persei said. Although Wu Ma Hai is a man of few words, he has probably fought many times. Including the battle with the mirage creature, we have only fought 16 times. Uncle Fu also said, not only were there many battles, but they were also very sudden. Moreover, with so many battles, they must have unintentionally entered some dangerous places. There were no spells like the Eyes of Space. Without Dongbu Ying's mirage doppelganger, Wu Ma Hai's death was very normal. Comparatively, Ken Huang was more proficient in long-range attacks. Although it was not as good as the Eyes of Space, it could still detect enemies. Wu Ma Hai's death made Dongbu Shuang, Persei, and Uncle Fu tense up again. Let's see what's inside the box. The mirage doppelganger walked up to the black metal chest. With a twist, the chest was opened. The black metal chest was empty, and there was only a single bronze talisman inside. It's the combat soldier seal. Persei nodded. That's right. Although a mirage creature that specializes in assassination has the combat power of a deity, it has an offensive divine weapon, a defensive divine armor, and a deity warrior. It's not bad. Dongbu Shuang nodded as well. That mirage creature was actually very difficult to deal with. Even if it encountered him, who could also walk in the mirage, it would still be difficult to deal with. The treasures were not bad. The demigod ancestors of the Xia people had come here many times in history, but none of them had obtained a divine artifact. Yet, he had obtained it the moment he arrived. Brother Dongbua, it's all thanks to you this time. Persei said. You killed that mirage creature. Logically speaking, the spoils of war should belong to you, Brother Dongbua. However, I'll shamelessly ask Brother Dongbua to lend me this defensive divine artifact. How about it? If I survive, I'll definitely return this divine artifact. If I die, returning it will depend on luck. There's no need to say more. Brother Persei took care of me in the vine leaf world. I don't have any battle chi, so I can't activate the divine artifact. Giving it to me is just for show. Brother Persei, take it. You said that if you survive Crimson Rock Mountain, you have to give me the divine artifact, Dongbu Shuang joked. Of course, of course. Persei revealed a joyful expression. Within Crimson Rock Mountain, a defensive divine artifact would greatly increase one's survivability. As for successfully leaving alive, what was the use of armor then? By the time he returned to the deity world, his flying sword villa would have a defensive divine artifact. Moreover, since he had done such a great deed, the world deity-level existences had sworn to reward him with astonishing rewards. Actually, Persei understood that there was a high chance that he would die along the way. Moreover, he would be acting alone in the future. Even if he died, he might not be able to return the divine artifact. I'll shamelessly say no more. Persei said, Brother Dongbua, please hurry up and refine this combat talisman. Yes. Dongbu Shuang extended his hand, and the bronze talisman immediately flew over. He immediately refined it with a drop of his blood. The fat warrior, who had been struggling, immediately stopped struggling. Persei retracted his shackles. Greetings, Master. The fat warrior said respectfully. What's your name? Dongbu Shuang asked. Master, my name is Tu Shuang. The fat warrior said, not long after I was successfully refined, I was teleported to the vine leaf world by Senior Shiwei. Put down the 2 divine artifacts. You won't be able to use them even if you hold them. Dongbu Shuang said. Yes, yes. The fat warrior hurriedly put down the spiked mace and took off the armor. These weren't mine in the first place, and I don't like these weapons. Dongbu Shuang waved his hand and kept the spiked mace. Persei grinned and immediately refined the defensive armor. The divine artifacts within Crimson Rock Mountain had one advantage: they were all ownerless, and could be easily refined. Persei's entire body was immediately covered with a layer of silver-gray armor. What weapons are usually suitable for you? Dongbu Shuang asked. He didn't dare to let this deity warrior use the divine artifact. It would be too late for regrets if it was taken away during battle. If he brought the spiked mace back to the Xia people would be able to use it. Shield, great axe. The fat warrior said. I have a shield here, but no great axe. Dongbu Shuang waved his hand and threw a shield and a saber over. Take them first. Back then, the demonic faction had plundered a large number of weapons. The important ones had all been given to the Xia people, but they still kept a few. For example, there were 3 demigod rank spears. They were worried that when using extreme piercing, the stellar fire cloud spear would fail during the material exclusion and be broken by the enemy's armor. Naturally, they had to prepare a backup weapon. Before coming to Crimson Rock Mountain, they had prepared 2 shields, as well as other sabers and staffs. These were actually the demigod rank weapons left behind by General Ku Meng and Nuan Nuan, yes. The fat warrior immediately grabbed the shield with one hand and the saber with the other. Master, I, Tu Shuang, swear to be loyal to Master and fight for Master. He was like a statue, not moving at all. He was so stifled. Seeing this, Dongbua Shuang smiled. There will be a time for you to fight. However, it probably wouldn't be of much use. Master, if you want to go out, I'll open the door. Tu Shuang said. He quickly walked to the side of the cabin wall and lightly placed his palm on it. Ka ka ka, the sealed cabin door slowly opened. It revealed the scenery of the mountains outside. I'll let you out when the battle begins. Dongbua Shuang waved his hand and stored Tu Shuang away. Let's go. Dongbua Shuang, Persei, and Uncle Fu walked out of the cabin. Just as they walked out of the cabin, when Dongbua Shuang and the rest looked back, they could no longer see the cabin. Without hesitation, they sent their mirage doppelgangers to scout ahead. Uncle Fu scanned the surroundings while Dongbua Shuang and the other 2 quickly rushed towards the core of the long vine. Dongbua Shuang and the rest were already very close to the long vine. Following the high speed, they traveled for 100,000 li, 50,000 li, 30,000 li. On top of a tall mountain, there were many trees and plants. Among them, there was a large tree gazing into the distance. Amen. A pair of eyes appeared on the trunk of this large tree. It gazed into the distance and saw Dongbua Shuang, Persei, and Uncle Fu who were currently rushing over. Master, we've discovered Dongbua Shuang. Beside the long vine, within a few rocks several tens of li away. Within the hidden space. The black-skinned youth, the Lords of Ulan, who was wrapped in white cloth, suddenly opened his eyes. Are they here? The Lords of Ulan also stood up and looked in that direction. He was in the hidden space and could see the outside world. However, the outside world couldn't discover him. Unless he walked out of the hidden space. Originally, this hidden space had been ambushed by enemies. After being killed by the Lords of Ulan, he temporarily hid here. As time passed. I see them. The Lords of Ulan also saw them. More than 6,000 li away, there were currently 3 figures rushing over happily. Naturally, Dongbua Shuang and the other 2 were happy, because they were very close to the core of the long vine. Little darlings, let's move. The Lords of Ulan grinned. Approximately 1,300 li to the left of the long vine, there was a low mountain. Suddenly, a rumbling sound came from the belly of the mountain. Kill! Kill it! Suddenly, a turbulent undulation came from the belly of the mountain. A 4-hooved mutated beast that was fleeing in panic was instantly surrounded by over 10 dark green tentacles that stretched out from nothingness. In an instant, the tentacles entangled it. Then, this 4-hooved mutated beast was completely torn into many pieces. However, there were still other 4-hooved mutated beasts that were fleeing in panic in the direction of Dongbua Shuang and the others. As Dongbua Shuang and the other 2 rushed over, they were all in a good mood. The tall long vine was already incomparably clear to them. However, even if they were to approach it, they still had to be careful. The observational range of the eyes of space was 3,000 li. As for Dongbua Shuang's true meaning of mirage, it could cover 10,000 li. Dongbua Shuang's expression changed. He turned his head and looked at 1,300 li to the left of the long vine. The space of the first vine leaf world was strange. There were many enemies that could move stealthily, and even his mirage could not detect them. However, he could still detect mirage creatures. At the belly of the mountain. Inside the mirage, there were many 8-clawed mirage creatures rushing out. Their auras were not any weaker than the one that had been fighting earlier. More than 100 8-clawed mirage creatures rushed out. They were chasing after a group of four-hooved, mutated beasts that were rushing in their direction. 8-clawed mirage creatures. Dongbo Shui Ying's expression changed drastically. He anxiously transmitted a message. 139 of them. They are charging towards us. Run. The creatures of the first vine leaf world would kill any outsider without mercy. 139 of them. Persei's eyes widened as well. 8-clawed mirage creatures could be considered to have reached the deity rank. More than 100. Even 100 stone sculpture guards would be very dangerous to them. Why are there so many mirage creatures, and why are they charging towards us? Uncle Fu couldn't believe it. Although he didn't dare to believe it, he didn't dare to hesitate. He also turned and fled. Boom! A figure appeared in midair in the distance. It was a barefooted, dark-skinned young man wrapped in white cloth. He tore a scroll in his hand. A terrifying force instantly enveloped an area of 10,000 li. Countless golden threads appeared. Under the control of the Lords of Ulan, they frantically surged towards Dongbo Shuang and the other two, entangling Dongbo Shuang and the other two. Shuang, Qinjiu, and Uncle Fu could feel the omnipresent golden threads. They couldn't help but feel anxious as they turned their heads to look. They turned their heads to look and saw the dark-skinned young man in midair. Lords of Ulan. Dongbo Shuang couldn't help but have a murderous look in his eyes. Yulan, I will definitely kill you. Persei's eyes were also bloodshot. He seemed to have gone mad. Ha, kill me. Let's talk after you survive the siege of more than 100 mirage creatures. His voice resounded around Dongbo Shuang and the others. The Lords of Ulan in midair laughed coldly. Chapter 327. A group of four-hooved, mutated beasts was fleeing in panic. Following them were more than 100 terrifying, borderline god-level 8-clawed mirage life forms hidden in the mirage. Dark green tentacles stretched out from the void, fast as lightning and extremely powerful. Either whipping or coiling, the four-hooved mutated beasts were quickly killed. Too terrifying. The Lords of Ulan's expression changed as they watched. They immediately rushed towards the core vine dozens of miles away. Because the distance was very close, and his speed was very fast, he crossed dozens of miles in an instant and landed on the core vine. The 8-clawed lifeforms that had noticed him in the mirage gave up on him. This was because there was a rule in the first vine leaf world. As long as one successfully stepped onto the core vine, they would pass the test of the first vine leaf world and would not be attacked again. Of course, demigod transcendents killing each other was an exception. He. The Lords of Ulan grinned, revealing their pearly white teeth, and laughed strangely with some excitement. Although these 8-clawed mirage life forms have weak laws and profound mysteries, their strength and speed are all god level. Each of them is stronger than General Ku Meng. Moreover, they are launching sneak attacks from the mirage. One-on-one, it would be very difficult for me. Not to mention so many of them attacking together. Persei, you are good at close combat. I'm afraid that with just 10 8-clawed mirage life forms, you will definitely lose. As for Dongbo Shuang, weren't you hiding in the mirage to make it difficult for others to attack you? Unfortunately, these 8-clawed monsters are all mirage life forms. The Lords of Ulan had been waiting for this day for a long time. After their servants had detected the group of 8-clawed mirage life forms in the belly of the mountain, the Lords of Ulan had been extremely excited and had been planning for this moment. Dongbo Shuang, Persei, Uncle Fu, and the others instantly understood that these 100 or so 8-clawed mirage life forms were not something they could resist at all. Therefore, their first thought was to turn and run. Damn it! Dongbo Shuang could feel the countless golden threads wrapping around his body. He even tried to enter the mirage, but the golden threads were still entangling him. This caused him to only be able to use 50% to 60% of his normal speed. At this speed, it was impossible for him to shake off the 8-clawed mirage creatures. Yulan. Persei was about to go crazy. What he was shouldering was not only his own life, but also the entire Flying Sword Manor. Uncle Fu, hurry up and leave. Crush the talisman and leave quickly. Persei transmitted anxiously. Wait for me in the Xia people's world. As long as I make it out alive, we can return to the God realm together. At this moment, the yellow-robed bald old man, Uncle Fu, was also anxious. He immediately took out several God-level scrolls and began to use them. No need to give it to me. Give it to Dongbua. Give it to him. Persei transmitted anxiously. I have a divine artifact armor, so there's no need to worry about my defense. Dongbua won't be able to hold on. Although Uncle Fu was completely inclined towards his manor master, he understood that the manor master was right. Since he already had a divine artifact armor, the mirage creatures couldn't ignore the armor and attack directly. Therefore, the defensive buffs from the divine grade scrolls would be a waste. Hua, 2 God-level scrolls were torn one after another. A red stream of light and a white mist enveloped Dongbua Shuiying's body, causing Dongbua Shuiying's body to seem to be covered with a layer of red and white gauze. Lock. Uncle Fu used another God-level scrolls. A formless gray gas seeped into the mirage realm, wrapping around the 8-clawed mirage creatures. At this moment, the 8-clawed mirage creatures had already killed the group of 4-hoofed strange beasts. They had already set their eyes on Dongbua Shuiying and the other 2. They were rushing over at high speed. The distance between the 2 sides was only 3,000 li sai. Uncle Fu was anxious. This was a large-scale control formation that could bind the enemy. Whether it was the real world, the mirage realm, the shadow space, or so on. In short, it could permeate and bind all planes of the world. However, binding 139 mirage creatures at the same time would also disperse the formation's power, reducing the speed of each mirage creature by only 5%. If they were concentrated on 3 to 5 targets, their speed would probably be reduced by more than half. Unfortunately, reducing 3 to 5 would have a negligible effect on the overall situation. Was there any difference between being besieged by 139 mirage creatures and being besieged by 136? There was no difference. Because the mirage creatures were huge, they couldn't attack at the same time. Damn it, damn it. Uncle Fu's eyes were red with anger. Although he still had God-level scrolls on him, they were of no help. Hurry and leave. Persei, who was fleeing at high speed, urgently shouted. Manor Master, be careful. Uncle Fu clenched his teeth and crushed the talisman in his hand. Suddenly, an invisible force descended and enveloped Uncle Fu's body. Who? Uncle Fu disappeared into thin air. He was completely transported out of Crimson Rock Mountain. As long as he left Crimson Rock Mountain, Uncle Fu would no longer be able to help. Although he could enter again according to the rules, Crimson Rock Mountain had its own rules. The interval between 2 attempts was at least 100 years. Secondly, the gifts and talismans obtained through the Meteor Bridge could only be obtained once. If he entered again in the future, he wouldn't be able to obtain gifts or talismans. Persei fled with all his might. Persei, only 800 li left. Dongbua Shuiying transmitted from the side. He also fled together and didn't enter the mirage. Because the 8-clawed monster was a mirage creature, it made no difference whether he entered the mirage or not. It's useless to escape. Let's fight. Persei stopped. Dongbua Shuiying also stopped. They were affected by the golden threads and couldn't get rid of them. They could only face them head-on. They're coming. Dongbua Shuiying opened his mouth. Bang! The gravity domain was immediately released. The laws of profound mysteries avoided Persei and didn't affect Persei. These transcendents actually dare to make a move against us. Human, don't struggle. Just obediently accept your death. The eight-clawed monster's voice seeped into the real world. At the same time, dark green tentacles attacked from all directions. In an instant, dozens of long tentacles transformed into phantoms and enveloped over. Persei revealed his 8 arms and carefully blocked the attacks from all directions. Dongbua Shuang was also wielding a spear. The two of them were only 3 to 5 meters apart from each other. The 8-clawed monster's body was rather large. Hence, they were able to squeeze together and besiege Dongbua Shuang and Persei. There were only a dozen 8-clawed monsters. Dongbua Shuang and Persei each took on the responsibility. Each of them received an estimated 7 to 8 attacks. Dongbua, you be careful. I can't take care of you. Persei waved his 8 arms with great difficulty and desperately blocked the attacks from all directions. His arms and palms became very large. They were like 8 shields that blocked almost all the attacks from all directions. However, those dark green tentacles that stretched out from nothingness, apart from whipping, would also entangle, wanting to entangle Persei. Scram! Dongbua Shuang was slightly better. He could clearly observe every 8-clawed monster in the mirage. When they attacked, they were all under Dongbua Shuang's observation. Naturally, their reactions were faster. It was a pity, these 8-clawed monsters were rather large, but his gravity domain was not strong enough. Under the gravitational repulsion, their speed was probably only reduced by 10%. However, every 8-clawed monster had 8 tentacles. He could only see dozens of long tentacles surrounding him from the mirage and besieging him. Persei couldn't help him either. Boom! Peng! Dongbua Shuang used his spear technique again and again. He only used star meteor annihilation once before he was besieged by the tentacles from all directions, forcing him to not dare to use it. This was because star meteor annihilation wasn't coherent enough. He had to use moves that didn't seem to have any pauses. For example, the lightning-fast extreme piercing. He had to use it again and again to block the attacks from all directions. However, even so, in less than half a second. Pang! A tentacle broke through the defense of the spear, and the soft tentacle whipped Dongbua Shuang's back. A surge of power. The power of a deity caused Dongbua Shuang to be thrown forward uncontrollably. In front of him was a dense mass of tentacles that quickly enveloped him. Dongbua. Persei, who had 8 arms, was still barely holding on. Seeing this scene, he couldn't help but feel anxious and pained. Chapter 1. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.